Chapter 38:18. This jade slip contains the specific information of that male pet and the location where he went missing. Lu Xiaodao lightly said. Zhuan frowned. He raised his head and looked at Lu Xiaodao. He asked loudly, Owner Lu, there are a total of 8 people in the plaza. Why did you only give out 7 jade slips? Where's mine? Lu Xiaodao glanced at Zhuan and sneered. Little friend, it's important to know one's own limits. Your cultivation is too low. If you go to Evil King Island, don't even talk about completing the mission. You might not even be able to survive. The other 7 people looked at Zhuan. Other than Huyan Lanju, the other 6 people had a look of ridicule in their eyes. Trash at the heaven-trampling transformation stage also wants to participate in this kind of mission. Where did you get your courage from? Hurry up and go home to drink milk, you piece of trash. Standing not far away from Zhuan, a youth with a scar on his face crossed his arms. He spat at Zhuan and taunted. Who did you just call trash? Zhuan slowly turned his head and looked indifferently at the scarred youth in front of him. His eyes emitted a chilling intent. The scarred youth was startled and immediately sneered. Trash, you really don't know your own limits. I said you're trash, so why aren't you getting out of this plaza? Don't make a fool of yourself here. Zhuan no longer spoke. He took a step forward and instantly charged towards the scarred youth. Trash, you've got some guts. You actually dared to provoke this master. Die for this master. The scarred youth sneered. His eyes revealed a cruel light. He then took out a silver stick from his spiritual ring and smashed it towards Zhuan. Suddenly, the silver light was like snow, and countless stick shadows whizzed over, filling the space above Zhuan. Su Lin glanced sideways at Zhuan and shook his head as he muttered in his heart. This trash really doesn't know his own limits. How can a pinnacle heaven ascension transformation stage be a match for a pinnacle nihility god transformation stage? Huyan Lanju's beautiful eyebrows wrinkled. She originally wanted to make a move, but the speed of the scarred youth was too fast. His attack had already landed in front of Zhuan. It was already too late for her to make a move. Huyan Lanju shook her head inwardly. If Zhuan didn't take the initiative to provoke this person, then things wouldn't have turned out this way. Countless staff shadows swept over. Zhuan flicked his finger, took out the blood spear, and fiercely flicked it upwards. Blood-colored energy suddenly exploded, and the countless stick shadows were annihilated. After that, Zhuan suddenly threw out the blood spear in his right hand. The blood spear was extremely fast and instantly landed on the waist of the scarred youth, ruthlessly whipping him. Poochie! The scarred youth screamed miserably and spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body flew out in a sorry state. Bang! The scarred youth smashed heavily into the ground, creating a huge crater. You trash! The scarred youth roared. Just as he was about to get up, the blood spear fell from the sky and pierced through his heart, nailing him to the ground. Poochie! The scarred youth spat out another mouthful of blood. His entire body began to twitch, and his aura was extremely weak. Zhuan took a step forward and landed on the tail of the blood spear. He stood on one leg and looked down at the scarred youth. He said indifferently, Trash? Who's the trash now? The atmosphere suddenly quieted down. The rest of the people who originally looked down on Zhuan were all dumbfounded. It was as if they had seen a ghost. This heaven-trampling transformation youth was a little strange. He actually managed to kill the scarred youth, who was at the pinnacle of the nihility god transformation realm. This was a little too strong. Huyan Lanju's beautiful eyes bloomed with an inexplicable brilliance. She sized up Zhuan and said in a low voice, Interesting? I can't believe that there are times when I'm wrong. This person's aura concealment technique is very strong. Lu Xiaodao's calm eyes burst with an unexpected brilliance. He looked deeply at Zhuan and did not say anything. Zhuan jumped down from the blood spear and took the scarred youth's spirit ring. He searched inside and found the jade strip that Lu Xiaodao gave him. Owner Lu, this jade strip is in my hands. Do I have the qualifications to participate in this mission? Zhuan looked at Lu Xiaodao and said, You have the qualifications. Lu Xiaodao said indifferently. He then continued, Everyone, The Jade Strip has been given to you. You can leave for the Evil King Island as soon as possible. You must bring the owner's pet back safely. Owner Lu, don't go yet. The Evil King Island is a dangerous place. How can a mere pet have a chance to survive? Are you making fun of us? A middle-aged woman suddenly asked. The rest of the people also realized this problem. Since he was willing to be a pet, his strength must not be much. How could such a weakling survive on the Evil King Island? The pet is still alive. The Jade Strip that I gave you has the life imprint of the pet. If the life imprint is still there, the pet is definitely not dead. If he dies during the mission, then the mission will be considered a failure. Therefore, you should leave as soon as possible. After Lu Xiaodao finished speaking, he left the high platform. Hee, this mission is interesting. Crazy Blade Su Lin laughed. He kept the Jade Strip and left the plaza. The rest of the people also moved quickly and prepared to leave for the Evil King Island. Huyan Lanzhu did not move. He walked in front of Zhuowen and carefully sized up Zhuowen. He smiled and said, Brother Daowen, my eyes were blind. I didn't see that you were hiding your strength. I wonder where Brother Daowen's master came from. Zhuowen was not surprised. He knew that Huyan Lanzhu thought highly of him when he defeated the scarred youth in one move. I'm just a nameless pawn, not worth mentioning. On the other hand, Brother Huyan, you should be the one hiding your strength. What did you learn from? Zhuowen asked in reply. Huyan Lanzhu smiled and said, I'm the same as Brother Daowen. I'm also a nameless pawn. The only difference is that I'm from the Li Yuan main region. Li Yuan main region? Zhuowen's pupil shrank as he looked deeply at Huyan Lanzhu. He hadn't expected that this fellow wasn't from the central state, but from the higher Li Yuan main region. He just didn't know which power in the Li Yuan main region this person belonged to. Zhuowen also knew that if he continued to ask, Huyan Lanzhu would not say anything. On the other hand, Huyan Lanzhu was quite enthusiastic. After exchanging communication jade talismans with Zhuowen, she waved goodbye to him. Zhuowen walked in front of the scarred youth and pulled out the blood spear. Big brother, don't kill me. I offended you. I'll kowtow to you. I beg you to spare my life. The scarred youth endured the pain and knelt in front of Zhuowen, kowtowing and begging for mercy. Get lost. Don't let me see you. Zhuowen waved his hand and told him to get lost. He was not a bloodthirsty person who would kill just because of a quarrel. Io, as expected of our Hong sect's eldest disciple. He's simply too beautiful. His strength is amazing. After the others left, the sloppy Taoist, Dao Kong, and Dokyo surrounded Zhuowen with shining eyes. The words they said were all mushy praises. Ever since Zhuowen joined the Hong sect, they had never seen Zhuowen's true strength. They thought that Zhuowen was just an ordinary heaven-treading transformation realm cultivator. Chapter 38:19. Sect Leader, Junior Brothers Dao Kong and Dokyo. I'm going to Evil King Island. You guys can stay at the Great Music Bar for now. After I finish my mission, I'll meet you guys at the Great Music Bar. Zhuowen patted Dao Kong and Dokyo's heads as he looked at the slovenly Taoist master. Unexpectedly, the slovenly Taoist master shook his head like a rattle drum and said, No way. We're going to go to Evil King Island with you? Zhuowen was stunned. Then, he slapped the slovenly Taoist master's face lightly and said, Sect Leader, are you out of your mind? You're going to Evil King Island? Do you want to die? The slovenly Taoist master was not angry. Instead, his eyes lit up and he said, I'm Daowen. The Qi refinement manual that you taught us is really magical. After I cultivated it, I could really refine the evil spirits and strengthen my righteousness. On Evil King Island, there are basically evil spirits. My cultivation might be trash, but after cultivating the Heaven and Earth Righteousness Sutra for so many years, my righteousness is more powerful than yours. I'm much more useful than you in Evil King Island. Hearing that, Zhuowen was silent for a moment. What the slovenly Taoist master said was not unreasonable. Evil King Island was a special island that was full of evil spirits and had no cultivators or beasts. The slovenly Taoist master's righteousness was indeed many times more powerful than Zhuowen's. Once they entered Evil King Island, the slovenly Taoist master would have more advantages than him. Sect leader, I'm not worried about you. The main thing is that junior brothers Dao Kong and Dokio. Zhuowen looked at Dao Kong and Dokio and said awkwardly, Senior brother Daowen, you don't have to worry about us. Although we haven't officially cultivated the Qi refinement chapter, we're going there to broaden our horizons. Master can guarantee our safety. Dokio laughed foolishly. Dao Kong knocked on Dokio's head and said in an old-fashioned manner, Dokio, what do you mean by broadening your horizons? We went over to help senior brother Daowen. Why are you so cowardly? Do you know how to speak properly? Dokio's eyes were hazy with tears as he nodded repeatedly. Zhuowen looked speechlessly at the two clowns, Dao Kong and Dokio. Then he looked at the sloppy Taoist and said, Sect Master, you have to look after them. This mission is definitely not simple. With that, Zhuowen summoned the divine ship and soared into the sky with the three of them. Is that Evil King Island? About a few hours later, the divine ship landed on the shore of a black sea. Dao Kong's small hands held onto the railing as he pointed to the front of the black sea and suddenly shouted. Zhuowen followed Dao Kong's line of sight and landed in front of the black sea. About tens of thousands of miles ahead, there was the vague outline of an island. The strange thing was that the island was shrouded in a hazy black fog. It was impossible to see the specific scenery on the island. Moreover, dense and strange black clouds were floating in the sky above the island. Within the black clouds, sharp and dense black lightning was constantly flashing. Zhuowen's eyes were solemn. He knew that the island that vaguely appeared in the black fog was the destination of his trip, Evil King Island. When Zhuowen's divine ship approached the black fog of the island, the divine ship suddenly shook violently. Moreover, the array restrictions on the surface of the divine ship were actually eroded by some strange power and were annihilated one after another. At the same time, an evil and ferocious cry sounded in Zhuowen's ears. It was very noisy and ear-piercing. It was an evil howl. Don't use the overwhelming righteousness yet. Zhuowen suddenly shouted. The slovenly Taoist, Dao Kong, and Dokio who were planning to use the overwhelming righteousness were instantly stunned. They saw Zhuowen take out a fluorite statue from the macro world. Instantly, the evil spirits that broke through the defenses of the divine ship all distanced themselves from the fluorite statue and did not dare to approach it. Dao Kong, what's going on? Why are you using a fluorite statue? The slovenly Taoist asked in confusion. Someone is coming. It's best not to let outsiders see something like the overwhelming righteousness. Zhuowen reminded him. The slovenly Taoist was suddenly enlightened. He withdrew the overwhelming righteousness and obediently waited beside the fluorite statue. Indeed, not long after Zhuowen's voice fell, there was the sound of something breaking through the air behind them. In just a few breaths' time, the sound of something breaking through the air was very close. Then it instantly surpassed them. It was also a divine ship. Its size was even larger and more luxurious than Zhuowen's. On the deck of the divine ship stood a middle-aged man with a large saber on his back. The moment the divine ship brushed past Zhuowen, the middle-aged man glanced at Zhuowen and the corners of his mouth widened, revealing a meaningful smile. Zhuowen is no stranger to this middle-aged man. He is the elder of the tyrannical saber villa, Su Lin, whom he met at the Great Music Plaza. This monkey-faced uncle is obviously not a good person, Dokio said timidly. Let's continue forward. Zhuowen urged the divine ship to continue forward. He followed the jade strip that Lu Xiaodao gave him and found the place where the male pet disappeared. This place is near a reef on the southeastern shore of Evil King Island. When they landed near the reef, they saw several light sources in the surroundings. One of the light sources is Su Lin, who Zhuowen had just brushed past. Another light source is actually Huyan Lanju. The rest are also cultivators who accepted the mission at the plaza. Aside from Huyan Lanju, the rest of them glanced at Zhuowen and continued to search for something nearby with expressionless faces. Huyan Lanju revealed a brilliant smile at Zhuowen, causing Zhuowen to be absent-minded for a moment. As for the sloppy Taoist, he was even drooling. Zhuowen directly slapped the sloppy Taoist, causing the latter to suddenly wake up. He awkwardly wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and awkwardly said, a man. Just now I saw wrongly again. Although the sloppy Taoist's words were soft, Huyin Lanzhu is not an ordinary person. She heard it from afar. After that, Zhuowen could faintly see that Huyin Lanzhu's smile had become somewhat stiff. Brother Zhuo, I've searched this place several times, but I can't find any clues. I'm afraid that the male pet is deeper in Evil King Island. You and I are now competitors, so I can only give you this hint. Goodbye. After Huyin Lanzhu sent this message to Zhuowen through the communication talisman, she quickly went deeper into Evil King Island. The rest of the people did not want to be outdone and followed closely behind. However, they all had a tacit understanding and did not go in the same direction. The clues of a male pet had already been cut off here, and his location was uncertain. Therefore, they tried not to go in the same direction. This way, the chances of finding the male pet would be higher. Right now, their main goal was to find the male pet, no matter who found it. And once one of them was found, it was likely that a fierce battle would be unavoidable. Chapter 38:20. Zhuowen did not break the surveillance formation. After all, if he did that, he would offend those people at the same time. There was no need to do that. Sect leader, you carry the fluorite statue and follow behind me. Zhuowen jumped off the divine ship and said to the slovenly Taoist. The number of evil spirits on the shore of Evil King Island was large enough to completely block the divine ship. It was obviously impossible for him to rely on the divine ship to enter Evil King Island. He could only get off the ship and walk. Good boy, I'm the sect leader. You actually want me to carry the fluorite statue. Are you looking down on me? The slovenly Taoist said in exasperation. Sorry, it's not that I don't look down on you. It's just that you have never been in my eyes. Zhuowen shrugged and continued. There are some surveillance formations here, so it's inconvenient to expose the nature energy. Once we enter the inner part of the island, I'll put away the fluorite statues and we'll use the nature energy. Yes, of course, if you don't want to carry it, we will have a real fight. Whoever loses will carry it. This is a fair competition. The slovenly Taoist's face turned green. He carried the fluorite statue on his back bitterly and slowly followed behind Zhuowen. What a joke. Although he was the sect leader, his strength was far inferior to Zhuowen's. Wasn't it asking him to compete fairly with Zhuowen? Wasn't he looking for trouble? The four of them chose a completely different direction from the others. Soon, they entered a dark and dense forest. The evil spirits in the dense forest were even more terrifying. Zhuowen also vaguely found that the evil spirits here were more powerful than those on the shore. The range of the fluorite statue's light source was shortened by about 1 meter. Sect leader, it's up to you. Zhuowen glanced at the slovenly Taoist and put away the fluorite statue. The slovenly Taoist priest chuckled. A powerful chi of righteousness surged out of him, turning him into a golden statue. The slovenly Taoist's righteous energy was indeed powerful. When Zhuowen once again felt the overwhelming righteousness, his heart was still shaken. However, the slovenly Taoist priest also knew that there were other people on Evil King Island. Therefore, he had already restrained his righteous energy, and it only enveloped the area where the four of them were. Furthermore, Zhuowen noticed that the slovenly Taoist priest had even split out a portion of his righteous energy to condense violent electric threads. They shot out in a dense manner and refined all the evil spirits around him. Zhuowen was not surprised that the slovenly Taoist had mastered the chi refinement section so quickly. After all, this guy had been cultivating the Universal Righteousness Sutra for tens of thousands of years and had figured out many ways to use the universal righteousness. The sloppy Taoist priest's understanding of the heavenly and earthly Howren Sutra far surpassed Zhuowen's. Zhuowen would be surprised if this guy couldn't grasp it quickly after reading the Chi Refinement chapter. Daowen Daokong Dokyo. Take a good look at Master's valiant and heroic bearing. Do you worship Master in your heart? The slovenly Taoist priest was beaming with joy and was very smug. Zhuowen was a little speechless. This guy was really going to start a dye factory, just because he was taught a lesson. Stop showing off. Hurry up and move forward. And Dao Kong, Dokio, take a good look at how the sect leader uses the universal righteousness to refine the evil spirits. This will be very beneficial for your cultivation of the Qi refinement chapter, Zhuowen said to Dao Kong and Dokio. Then, the group continued to move forward. Zhuowen also used the universal righteousness to refine the evil spirits around him and began to strengthen the universal righteousness in his body. At the same time, Zhuowen used the universal righteousness in his eyes to strengthen his eye power by many times. He could now see a certain distance in the darkness where evil spirits were rampant. This was extremely shocking. In the 100 Outer Territories, darkness was very terrifying. The naked eye and divine sense would be blocked by a special force in the darkness. Without a light source, a cultivator would not be able to move an inch in the darkness, just like a blind person. But now, the way the universal righteousness was used was a top-notch cheat. In the darkness, Zhuowen, who had the universal righteousness, could see a little. It was an innate advantage against other cultivators. Moreover, even if an ordinary cultivator carried a fluorite statue with them, their vision would only be within the range of the light emitted by the fluorite statue. In the darkness outside the light source, they would not be able to see at all. Of course, Zhuowen's vision was not very wide. It was only about 100 meters or so. We're almost at the end of the forest. There's a canyon in front. That canyon is a little strange. It's best to be careful. Suddenly, the slovenly Taoist priest behind him reminded them. Hearing that, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with confusion. In his vision of 100 meters or so, there was still a dense forest in front of him. There was no exit, let alone a canyon. However, the slovenly Taoist priest did not seem to be talking nonsense. Zhuowen suddenly realized that the slovenly Taoist priest's vision in the dark was much wider than his. That was why he had discovered the canyon in front of him earlier. As expected, Zhuowen could barely see the terrain of the canyon in front of him after walking for tens of thousands of meters. He was shocked. Didn't that mean that the slovenly Taoist priest's vision was tens of thousands of meters more than his? Sect Master, I'm counting on you now. Observe carefully, Zhuowen said with a serious gaze. With his pitiful vision, he could not see anything different in the canyon. He could only ask the slovenly Taoist priest for help. The slovenly Taoist priest's gaze became extremely serious. He said, I see a pile of bones. There are mountains of human bones, scattered beast bones, and many unrecognizable bones. This canyon is filled with bones. It's a graveyard for living beings. But I don't see any trace of a demonic spirit. Zhuowen's pupils constricted. His vision was only 100 meters. He could only see within 100 meters of the canyon. There was no trace of a demonic spirit. The canyon was very vast. He thought that the demonic spirit was in the depths of the canyon. But now, it seemed that he was wrong. This huge canyon did not have any demonic spirits. How is that possible? This was Evil King Island, a paradise for demonic spirits. It was too strange that there was a canyon without any demonic spirits in such a place. Sect Master, are there any other paths? Zhuowen asked. This canyon was too strange. He planned to go around it. The slovenly Taoist priest shook his head and said, This canyon stretches on both sides. There's no other path. Why don't we go back and find another path? Dao Kong suggested. Zhuowen shook his head and said, That's too slow. It'll take too much time. I'm afraid we'll be left far behind by others. Let's go this way. With Sect Master's cultivation of righteousness, I'm afraid we won't be afraid even if we encounter a stronger demonic spirit. With that, Zhuowen led the way into the canyon. Hee, you brat. You finally said something reasonable. I like what you said. The slovenly Taoist priest was overjoyed. He walked with his feet splayed outwards and followed behind Zhuowen. Chapter 38:21. Creak. The moment Zhuowen stepped into the canyon, he could hear the sound of bones cracking under his feet. That was the sound of bones cracking from being stepped on. It was clear, melodious, and pleasing to the ear. It faintly reverberated within the gorge, and numerous strange echoes sounded out. Wow, so many bones. Master Shixiang, I'm so scared. After Dokio stepped into the canyon, he realized that it was not mud under his feet, but bones. He was so scared that he started to cry. Daokong knocked on Dokio's head and said, "Why are you crying? You don't have to be afraid with me around. If anything happens, I'll take care of it for you. Follow me closely." Dokio wiped his snot and sobbed. "Thank you, Shixiao." Daokong, not bad. Normally, I see that you've always been bullying Dao Jing. Now, at the critical moment, you're actually still able to say this kind of touching words. Zhuo Wen teased. "What do you mean by touching my heart? I'm not worried about Dokio. I'm just worried about my future fun. If Dokio dies, I won't have any playmates in the Hong sect. That's so boring." Daokong was so angry that his face turned red. He quickly argued. Hee, I know. Daokong, you know Dokio the best." The shabby Taoist priest laughed. Daokong snorted, turned his head away, and no longer spoke. "Zhuowen, be careful. Try your best to protect Daokong and Dokio. I'll lead the way." The shabby Taoist priest's eyes suddenly turned serious. He walked past Zhuowen and walked to the front. His voice was low and serious. Zhuo Wen's expression turned solemn. The slovenly Taoist's righteous qi was much stronger than his, and his vision was much wider than his. For him to suddenly say that, it was likely that he had discovered something in the canyon. Zhuowen did not force himself. The shabby Taoist priest had an innate advantage in a place like Evil King Island. Zhuowen activated the great righteousness in his body. A golden ball of qi emerged from his body and enveloped him, Daokong, and Dokio. "You guys wait for me here," the slovenly Taoist suddenly shouted. Then, he took a step forward and the vast righteous energy around him poured out like a vast ocean. Swoosh! Soon, the shabby Taoist priest arrived at the deepest part of the canyon. Zhuowen firmly protected Daokong and Dokio as he stared at the deepest part of the canyon. His vision was not as good as the shabby Taoist priest, but his intuition told him that there was something very powerful hidden in the deepest part of the canyon. Boom, boom, boom. Not long after the shabby Taoist priest left, an earth-shattering explosion came from the deepest part of the canyon. Then, Zhuowen felt that the surrounding canyon was shaking violently, as if the earth's crust was about to explode. "What's happening? I'm so scared." Dokio trembled in fear and cried even harder. Daokong also looked terrified. However, he held it in and did not cry. Instead, he stood in front of Dokio to protect him. Not long after the violent tremors, Zhuowen noticed that a golden light was surging thousands of meters in front of the canyon. It was the light of the great righteousness. This light was simply too intense. It spread out in all directions like ripples on water. Then, the entire canyon was bathed in the golden light. The darkness had long been dispelled, and the canyon was as bright as day. At the center of the blazing golden light, there was a figure that was not very tall. It was a shabby Taoist priest. Zhuowen looked serious. He was amazed by the shabby Taoist priest's cultivation of the universal sutra of heaven and earth. He didn't know how big this canyon was, but under the bright light, he could see everything clearly. The entire canyon was tens of thousands of miles wide. Such a huge canyon was now filled with the vast righteous energy. It was obvious that the shabby Taoist priest's cultivation of the great righteousness was unfathomable. Under the illumination of the great righteousness, Zhuowen finally saw the huge creature in the deepest part of the canyon. It was a demonic spirit that was more than 10 feet tall. The demonic spirit looked like an evil spirit. It had horns that were 3 feet tall, and its eyes were red. It let out a sound that was more shocking than thunder. It was Zhuowen's first time seeing such a demonic spirit. Ever since he cultivated the great righteousness, he could see the demonic spirits in the dark. He knew that most of the demonic spirits were only 3 feet tall and had mediocre strength. However, there were many of them. Ever since Zhuowen entered the 100 outer regions, most of the demonic spirits he encountered in the dark were like this. Zhuowen called them ordinary demonic spirits. There were different levels of cultivators, and demonic spirits naturally existed as well. Although Zhuowen had never seen a demonic spirit that was stronger than ordinary demonic spirits, he knew that there must be such an existence. However, these stronger demonic spirits were very rare and were not easy to encounter in ordinary places. Evil King Island was an example. In the middle ground, most cultivators knew that Evil King Island was a paradise for demonic spirits. There were demonic spirits that were stronger than the outside world. The strongest demonic spirit was called the Evil King. That was the origin of Evil King Island. Could this demonic spirit be the Evil King? Zhuowen looked at the gigantic demonic spirit with fear in his eyes. This demonic spirit was much stronger than ordinary demonic spirits. Even Zhuowen would find it difficult to deal with such a demonic spirit. However, the next scene made Zhuowen dumbfounded. The slovenly Taoist priest hovered in the air with the help of the great righteousness. He looked down at the demonic spirit and said, "Demon, surrender now, and I can spare your life." Damn, do you have to be so pretentious? This is a demonic spirit. What's there to spare? Is there something wrong with your brain? Roar. The demonic spirit's scarlet eyes looked coldly at the slovenly Taoist priest. Then, it suddenly leaped and attacked the slovenly Taoist priest without any warning. The slovenly Taoist priest did not panic. He pressed his right hand down, and the great righteousness formed a huge palm under his control. There was an extremely violent ball of golden lightning in the center of the huge palm. It was formed by the great righteousness. Demon, it seems that you want to go against me. All right, I may be merciful, but don't blame me for being merciless since you're so overbearing. The slovenly Taoist priest pretended to be pretentious again. Then he pressed his right hand down calmly. The huge palm fell like a mountain. Roar, roar. The gigantic demonic spirit was suppressed by the huge golden palm in the blink of an eye. It let out a shrill cry. The moment the golden lightning in the palm came into contact with the demonic spirit, it split into countless electric threads and wrapped around the demonic spirit, making strange crackling sounds. Bang! When the gigantic demonic apparition fell to the ground, Zhuowen noticed that the lower half of the demonic apparition's body had been completely destroyed. Only the upper half of its body was left and was also riddled with holes. So strong, Zhuowen's eyes were full of seriousness. Chapter 38:22. Daowen, Daokong, Dokyo, the three of you come over quickly. The shabby Taoist master hurriedly called out to Zhuowen and the other two. Zhuowen led Daokong and Dokyo to the front of the shabby Taoist master. The latter struck a pose that he thought was very cool and said pretentiously, "Wasn't I extraordinary and invincible just now?" Ugh! Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the shabby Taoist master. This guy was getting more and more insatiable. Why didn't he realize that this old man was so pretentious in the past? Dao Kong and Dao Jing, on the other hand, quickly clapped their hands and praised their master with all sorts of corny things, such as his remarkable abilities and boundless dermic powers. Dao Kong and Dokyo's words were very pleasing to the shabby Taoist master. He couldn't help but raise his head. He noticed that Zhuowen had a pained expression on his face and couldn't help but ask, "Daowen, what's with that expression? Didn't you see that I was invincible just now? Come on, say something nice to me and encourage me." Zhuowen was speechless. Was this old man done yet? All he did was defeat an evil spirit. Why was he acting like he was the best in the world? He really couldn't stand this old man. It's all right. Zhuowen thought for a while and squeezed out such a sentence. The shabby Taoist master refused to give up and insisted on pestering Zhuowen to say more nice things. Zhuowen had no choice but to say a few false praises to coax the old Taoist master. "Daowen, I remember that you only formed 1/3 of the Tao pattern last time. This evil spirit is powerful enough. If you refine this evil spirit, you will be able to form the first Tao pattern." The shabby Taoist master looked at Zhuowen seriously and pointed at the evil spirit that was on the verge of death. Zhuan suddenly realized that the reason why the shabby Taoist master didn't kill the evil spirit immediately was to leave it for him. "Thank you, sect leader," Zhuan said sincerely. "What are you thanking me for? We're all on the same side. Quickly refine it," the shabby Taoist master said. Zhuan nodded and sat cross-legged beside the evil spirit. He activated the overwhelming righteousness in his body and turned it into sharp golden lightning that blasted towards the evil spirit. This evil spirit was very powerful. At its peak, Zhuan was definitely not its match. But now, it was on the verge of death and was easily refined by Zhuan's golden lightning. Zhuan felt that the great righteousness in his body was rapidly growing stronger. In an instant, it had broken through its limits. Zhuan grunted as he began to compress the strengthened righteous energy. Inside his body, a broken golden word flew out. It was the embryonic form of the Tao pattern. After the nature energy was compressed into a golden dot, it flew to the missing part of the Tao pattern and continued to draw the strokes behind the Tao pattern. After about 10 breaths, the Tao pattern was completely drawn and returned to Zhuan's body. Zhuan could clearly feel that after the Tao pattern entered his body, although the quantity of the righteousness in his body did not change, the quality of it had undergone a tremendous change. To put it bluntly, Zhuan's overwhelming righteous energy attack was more than 100 times stronger than the previous one. This was the result of a qualitative change. Not bad. Your talent is indeed terrifying. Just by absorbing the soldier-level evil spirit, you have formed the first Tao pattern. The shabby Taoist master looked at Zhuan approvingly. Soldier-level evil spirit? Zhuan asked curiously. It seems that you're not very clear about the level of evil spirits. The shabby Taoist master looked at Zhuan strangely. Zhuan laughed embarrassedly. He had no choice but to explain that he had just ascended from the lower realms and knew nothing about the evil spirits. The shabby Taoist master did not doubt him and patiently explained to Zhuan about evil spirits. Just as there were differences in strength between cultivators, there were also differences in the strength of the illusory evil spirits. Currently, there were 9 known evil spirits in the 100 domains. They were Lin, Soldier, Do, Zhe, Jie, Zhen, Lai, Qian, and Xing. They were ranked from weak to strong. The soldier-level evil spirits were the second of the 9 levels. The Lin-level evil spirits were the weakest and also the most numerous. They could be seen everywhere in the night of the 100 domains. On the other hand, demonic spirits of near level and above were much fewer in number. They would only appear in certain places, and Evil King Island was one such place. Of course, the territory of the 100 Outer Realms was very large. Places like Evil King Island could be said to be as numerous as goose feathers. Usually, if an evil spirit at the soldier level or above appeared, it would be considered a more dangerous place. So, the soldier-level evil spirit in the canyon is the Evil King of Evil King Island. Zhuan asked. The shabby Taoist master shook his head and said with a serious look, "The Evil King is very powerful. He is much more powerful than you think. This soldier-level evil spirit should be the Evil King's subordinate and should be under his command. Otherwise, after you refine this evil spirit, the black fog around Evil King Island should have dissipated, because these black clouds were condensed by the Evil King's power. As long as the black fog doesn't dissipate, it means that the Evil King is still alive and well." Zhuan's expression did not look good. It seemed that the Evil King was at least a warrior-level evil spirit. I have a feeling that the Evil King is not just a warrior-level evil spirit. He might be even stronger. Fortunately, our purpose in coming to Evil King Island is not to defeat the Evil King, but to bring out the male pet of the great music bar. The shabby Taoist master's face was very serious. He continued seriously, "Let's continue forward. However, we must be careful. The deeper we go, the more dangerous it will be." The group of 4 traversed the huge canyon. After the soldier-level evil spirit was destroyed, the number of evil spirits in the canyon increased rapidly. Most of them were near-level evil spirits. At first, because the soldier-level evil spirits were guarding this place, it was their exclusive territory. Therefore, these lower-level evil spirits did not dare to approach and retreated outside the canyon. Now that the soldier-level evil spirit was dead, these near-level evil spirits naturally had no scruples and rushed into the canyon like crazy. For a moment, the quiet canyon was filled with howls and screams. Zhuowen and the others did not care. With the protection of the overwhelming morality, these near-level evil spirits were like air. They could not pose any threat to them. Even to Zhuowen and the others, these demonic charms were the best nourishment. Outside the canyon was a barren wasteland. On this wasteland, there were occasionally a few withered black trees that stood crookedly in the wind. Sect leader, have you seen any traces of the male pet in this wasteland? Zhuowen asked. The shabby Taoist master looked around. He was looking very seriously. After looking for a long time, he shook his head and said helplessly, "This wasteland is barren. Let alone a person. There's not even a ghost. Evil King Island is too big. Moreover, on this island, the darkness is corrosive and divine thought cannot be used. Even if sect leader's vision is very strong, if you want to find someone on this island, unless you search the entire island, there's no hope." Dokio said timidly. Zhuowen sighed in his heart. How could he not know that? He took out the jade slip and checked it. He found that the life imprint of the male pet was still in the jade slip. Obviously, the male pet was still alive. However, he could not figure out how a male pet with a low cultivation base could survive in such a harsh environment like Evil King Island. If he could survive, why didn't he leave Evil King Island? Chapter 38:23. Or could it be that the boy toy is trapped somewhere and can't get out? Zhuowen's eyes flickered. After considering this, he felt that this was the most likely possibility. I found two people. To be more precise, two corpses. The slovenly Taoist priest suddenly spoke. Where? Zhuowen looked around blankly. His field of vision was too small, and he couldn't see the corpses on the wasteland. Follow me. The slovenly Taoist priest's eyes were solemn as he led the three of them to the east of the wasteland. After walking for about an hour, Zhuowen also saw the two corpses mentioned by the slovenly Taoist priest. It's Su Lin from the domineering Saber Villa. Zhuowen immediately realized that one of the corpses was Su Lin, who had spoken at the square of the Great Music Workshop. The other corpse was a middle-aged old woman, who was also one of the 8 people who had accepted the mission from the Great Music Workshop. Judging from their injuries, they attacked each other and perished together. The slovenly Taoist priest checked their injuries and frowned as he spoke. That's strange. We haven't found the boy toy yet, and they have no grudges against each other. There's no need for them to fight. Moreover, they entered Evil King Island in a different direction from us. Why would they appear in front of us? Zhuowen vaguely felt that something was wrong and asked in a low voice. The slovenly Taoist priest was stunned and said, "What you said makes sense. Evil King Island is so big. It's impossible to meet these two people so quickly." At that moment, a huge dark cloud appeared in the sky above the wasteland and covered the sky. Then, a huge vortex appeared in the middle of the dark cloud. The center of the vortex was dark at first, then a light spot appeared. The light spot kept expanding and finally stopped when it was a few feet wide. "Look, there seems to be someone in the circle of light." Daokong suddenly shouted. Zhuowen looked up and saw that there were indeed figures in the circle of light. Then, they fell out of the circle of light. Moreover, it wasn't just one figure, but a total of 5. Zhuowen reacted quickly and immediately took out the fluorite statue. Then, he motioned for the slovenly Taoist and the others to retract their nature of righteousness. The first person landed not far from Zhuowen and the others. When he turned around, Zhuowen and the others were all stunned because this person was no stranger to them. Brother Daowen, why are the 4 of you here?" This person was the outrageously beautiful Huyan Lanju. When she saw Zhuowen and the other 3, she was also shocked. "That's what I wanted to ask you. Zhuowen smiled bitterly. At the same time, Zhuowen also noticed that the other 4 figures had landed not far from them. These 4 people were 4 of the 8 people who had accepted the mission from the Great Music Bar. In addition to the dead old woman and Su Lin, the total number of people on this wasteland was exactly 8 people for this mission. What's going on? How did I suddenly appear here? Bastard, who sent me here? After a brief moment of surprise, the other 4 people started cursing. They also didn't understand what had happened. However, they consciously gathered around Zhuowen and Huyan Lanju. Although they didn't know Zhuowen and Huyan Lanju, in this unfamiliar place where there weren't any cultivators, Zhuowen and Huyan Lanju were much more amiable than the surrounding evil spirits. Soon, Huyan Lanju and the other 4 people noticed the corpses of Su Lin and the old woman lying beside Zhuowen and the others. They couldn't help but take a few steps away from Zhuowen. Did you kill these 2 people? One of the hook-nosed youths gloomily looked at Zhuowen and the others and asked in an unfriendly tone. The 2 of them killed each other. If you don't believe me, you can check it for yourself. Zhuowen said as he spread out his hands. Hee, they were already killed by you. Now that you're saying this, do you think we'll believe you? Everyone, I suggest that the 5 of us work together to get rid of these 4 people. For this mission, the fact that only 4 of them came is already against the rules. I thought they were really weak, but now it seems that they didn't have good intentions at all. The slightly plump man, standing beside the hook-nosed youth, sneered. The 2 of them echoed each other and immediately raised the vigilance of the other 2. They looked at Zhuowen with unfriendly gazes. Huyan Lanju, on the other hand, was silent for a moment before he suddenly stood up and walked to Zhuowen's side. The 4 of you, although I haven't been in contact with Brother Dawen for a long time, I understand some of his nature. I can guarantee that he would never do such a thing. Moreover, you also know that this mission is to find the male pet of the exquisite Sound Street's owner. Now that the male pet has yet to be found, Brother Dawen has no enmity with Su Lin and the others. There's no need to kill them. Huyan Lanju said. When Huyan Lanju spoke up for Zhuowen, the other 4 people fell silent. They might not be clear about Zhuowen's strength, and only thought that Zhuowen was a nobody. However, they did not dare to underestimate Huyan Lanju. They had vaguely heard of Huyan Lanju's name, and knew that the latter's background was not small. Even Huyan Lanju stood up for Zhuowen. How would they dare to casually make things difficult for Zhuowen? Humans, you have guts. You trespassed into this king's territory and wantonly slaughtered my people. Do you really think that I, Salado, can't do anything to you? At this moment, the circle of light in the middle of the dark clouds did not disappear. Instead, it was expanding. A tyrannical voice came from the circle of light and filled the entire wasteland. The few people who were still confronting each other looked at the circle of light in the sky, their eyes filled with surprise. The moment they heard the voice, they had their own guesses. It's the evil king. Huyan Lanju stood beside Zhuowen, her eyes filled with seriousness. Zhuowen furrowed his brows slightly. He could feel a great pressure from his voice. He knew that Huyan Lanju's guess was correct. The owner of the voice was most likely the owner of Evil King Island, the Evil King. And this Evil King's name seemed to be Salado. You humans are truly ignorant and foolish. Just because of 2 corpses, you can start an internal strife. Hee, what a lowly race, Salado said in disdain. Salado, did you kill these 2 people? Huyan Lanju suddenly asked. Lowly humans are not worthy of me taking action. The 2 of them killed each other, and the one who gave the order was me. However, it is precisely because you humans are ignorant that you can give me great pleasure. From now on, you will give me even greater pleasure. Salado's voice became louder and louder. It was like a large bell, filling the entire wasteland and exploding in everyone's ears. Everyone was confused. They did not understand what Salado meant by pleasure. You all entered Evil King Island to look for a human man, right? Let me tell you clearly, the human man is in my hands. Chapter 38:24. Huyen Lanju's face turned gloomy as he said in a low voice, "Did the two of them kill each other like this?" Salado did not deny it and happily admitted it. "Your guess is correct. I did give the two of them such a condition. Unfortunately, the two of them were equal in strength. In the end, they perished together." Salado said with a trace of regret. "Oomph. We're not your slaves. Why should we listen to you? Since the male pet is in your hands, as long as we kill you, we can naturally get the male pet back," the hook-nosed youth said in an unruly manner. Salado was silent for a moment before he spoke again. "Kill me? Just by an ant like you? Then I want to see how you're going to kill me." Salado's arrogant voice descended between heaven and earth. Then, within the circle of light, a pitch-black hand appeared. It descended from the sky and landed heavily. The hook-nosed youth's face changed greatly. He felt a strong threat of death from this hand. Without any hesitation, he took out his natal artifact and used all his strength, intending to resist this terrifying black hand. The hook-nosed youth's strength was not bad. He was actually at the middle stage of the 5 elements transformation stage. As for his natal artifact, it was a cyan saber with a long handle. Cyan light flowed on the blade. At first glance, it looked as if there was a green dragon swimming on the blade. "Green dragon heaven, perishing art," the hook-nosed youth shouted as he held the slender saber with both hands and slashed towards the sky. Suddenly, a blazing green light surged from the blade and soared into the sky. The surging green divine power turned into a green dragon that was thousands of feet long. An earth-shattering dragon roar resounded between heaven and earth, reverberating continuously. Rumble. In the end, the black hand and the green dragon collided. Then, everyone was shocked to find that the huge green dragon was like a weak little hand in front of the black hand. It was crushed with one hand. No, spare me." The hook-nosed youth saw that the situation was not good and quickly fled to the back. However, the black hand was too fast. In the blink of an eye, it fell and covered the hook-nosed youth. The hook-nosed youth did not even finish his words of begging for mercy before he was completely suppressed by the black hand. The entire wasteland shook violently without end. Zhuowen and the others had already retreated far enough when the two sides were fighting, but they were still affected by the energy shockwaves. Then, they discovered that a bottomless abyss had appeared where the black hand had landed. As for the hook-nosed youth, he had completely disappeared. Hiss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The evil king's attack was too terrifying. The aquiline-nosed youth, who was at the middle stage of the 5 elements transformation stage, was killed in body and soul with a single hand. The 3 people who had been standing with the hook-nosed youth were scared out of their wits. Their strength was about the same as the hook-nosed young man's, or even slightly weaker. The hook-nosed youth had been dealt with so easily, so how could they be spared? "Evil king, we'll listen to you." The 3 of them lowered their heads. They were already scared out of their wits. Their hearts had already submitted to the evil king. How could they still have the courage to resist the evil king? "Master, this evil king is so strong. Are we going to die here?" Dokyo hugged the sloppy Taoist's arm with tears in his eyes as he spoke in fear. The sloppy Taoist patted Dokyo's head. His expression was abnormally solemn as he said, "Dokyo, don't worry. Master will definitely not let any of you get hurt. Even if I have to risk my life, I will make sure that all of you survive." Huyen Lanju opened his mouth and said, "The 3 of you, the evil king's words cannot be trusted. If all of you really do as he said and kill each other, even if all of you survive, can the evil king guarantee that he will give you his pet and not kill all of you? Right now, there is only one path in front of us. That is to join forces and attack the evil king. Only by killing the evil king can we obtain salvation." The chubby man coldly said, "Huyen Lanju, that's enough. The evil king is too strong. So what if we join forces? It's still like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. The 2 of you, join forces with me to kill Huyen Lanju first." With that, the chubby man shouted and took the lead to charge towards Huyen Lanju. The other two nodded and followed closely behind the chubby man. "Brother Huyin, let me help you." Zhuowen walked forward and stood shoulder to shoulder with Huyin Lanju. Unexpectedly, Huyin Lanju shook his head and chuckled. "Brother Daowen, I won't trouble you for this battle. It's just 3 5-elements transformation stage cultivators. I could defeat them in one move." With that, Huyin Lanju took a step forward and disappeared from Zhuowen's side. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. The moment Huyin Lanju disappeared, he actually did not sense any of his aura. This was somewhat inconceivable. Then, he saw Huyin Lanju's figure appear a few thousand meters away. His feet stepped on the void as if he was taking a stroll. With a step, his entire body was like a phantom as he brushed past the chubby man and the other two. In the blink of an eye, Zhuowen once again felt Huyin Lanju's aura. Furthermore, this aura was very close. This was because Huyin Lanju had unknowingly returned to his side. On the other hand, the chubby man and the other two were a few thousand meters away in the sky. Their bodies seemed to have frozen in midair. In about 3 breaths of time, the chubby man and the other two spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, like kites with their strings cut, they fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. Zhuowen could clearly feel that the three's auras were very weak. It was just a brush of shoulders, and the 3 of them were seriously injured. What was even more inconceivable was that Zhuowen did not even see how Huyin Lanju made his move. Zhuowen's expression became extremely serious. He looked deeply at the smiling Huyin Lanju beside him and felt a deep chill in his heart. The power contained within this ridiculously beautiful man's body was far beyond Zhuowen's imagination. This person was far more powerful than Luo Lingyu. The pressure that Huyin Lanju was giving him wasn't any less than the pressure that Elder Sikong Chiyu of the Hong Martial Divine Sect had given him when he caught up to them. This Huyin Lanju, could it be that she's a God Domain transformation expert? Zhuowen exclaimed in his heart. At this moment, Huyin Lanju seemed to have changed into a different person. The aura on her body was much stronger than before. Her entire temperament seemed to have transformed. Your strength is not bad. I never thought that your aura concealment technique would be so powerful. Even I couldn't see through your true cultivation from the start. In the light circle in the sky, the Heretic King's voice carried a trace of surprise. "Salado, your appearance has long been within my plans. Or rather, my true goal this time isn't the human in your hands." Huyin Lanju faintly said with a faint smile on her face. "Oh, then what is your goal?" the Heretic King asked curiously. Chapter 38:25. The halo in the sky was silent for a long time before it let out an earth-shattering laugh. "Human, this king has no choice but to admire your ability to tell jokes. I admit that you made me laugh." The evil king laughed sinisterly. "Made you laugh? You're overestimating yourself." Huyin Lanju sneered and made a grabbing motion with her right hand. Suddenly, Zhuowen, who was not far away, felt a terrifying energy ripple in the surrounding space. Then, the entire space seemed to have been locked down. Zhuowen was unable to move under the influence of this energy. He couldn't even blink his eyes. It was as if the surrounding time had stopped. What kind of power is this? Zhuowen was horrified as he looked at Huyin Lanju, who was not far away, with fear in his eyes. Whoosh! The dark clouds in the sky seemed to have been stirred up by a large hand as they scattered. The halo was also shattered by some kind of power. Immediately after, Zhuowen saw a huge figure rushing out from the shattered halo. It was in a sorry state. This figure was several thousand feet tall, and its appearance was like an evil spirit. It was pitch black, and its black skin was filled with potholes. It looked very disgusting. This evil ghost had 3 black horns that resembled goat horns on its head. Its entire body was emitting black mist, making it impossible to see its true body clearly. Zhuowen knew that this evil spirit should be the master of Evil King Island, the Evil King. How did you do it?" The Evil King looked at Huyin Lanju in shock. His scarlet eyes revealed an expression of disbelief. Huyen Lanju smiled and said, "Evil king, do you think that just because you're an evil spirit, I can't do anything to you? Aren't you looking down on us humans too much?" The evil king's eyes were filled with fear. He coldly looked at Huyen Lanju and said, "Are you from the exorcist family?" Huyen Lanju smiled and said, "It seems that you're not stupid. I never thought that you, a mere fighting-level evil spirit, would dare to call yourself the evil king. Truly, the ignorant are fearless." The evil king was enraged as he roared. "So what if you're from the exorcist family? Do you think you're still as powerful as before? In the end, all of you will be annihilated by us evil spirits, and then all of you humans will become our food and slaves." Huyen Lanju mockingly said, "The era of your evil charms has long passed. You want to make a comeback? I think you're delusional." After Huyen Lanju finished speaking, she sent a voice transmission to Zhuowen. "Brother Daowen, quickly take your men and leave this place. While I'm done here, I'll come and find you." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhuowen realized that he could move his body again. "Let's go," Huyen Lanju said solemnly. Zhuowen cupped his fist towards Huyen Lanju. Then he led the sloppy Taoist and the other two out of the wasteland and into the dense forest from before. "Sovereign, what the hell is this exorcist aristocratic family? Other than the universal scripture of heaven and earth practiced by the Hong sect, there are other human cultivators who can deal with evil spirits?" Zhuowen asked in surprise. The sloppy Taoist was also puzzled. He shook his head and said, "I don't know either. After all, the universal scripture of heaven and earth was obtained by the founder of the sect by chance. As for the exorcist aristocratic family, if you ask me, who should I ask?" Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the sloppy Taoist. "Master, senior brother, look, there's a strong light source in the wasteland. Did Huyen Lanju also practice the universal scripture of heaven and earth?" Dokyo suddenly said. Zhuowen and the sloppy Taoist looked over. Indeed, there was a burst of strong light in the wasteland. However, this light was not as dazzling as the universal energy of heaven and earth. Instead, it was emerald green. The moment this emerald green light surged out, the lifeless wasteland actually glowed with vitality once more. On the dry land, tender shoots began to emerge. Furthermore, the tender shoots were rapidly growing and turning into green grass. The range of the emerald green light was not large, only about a few hundred miles. However, that few hundred miles of wasteland had turned into a lush green grassland, forming a sharp contrast with the surrounding wasteland. As for the evil spirits that the heretic king had summoned, they did not dare to approach this area. They only dared to linger outside. The sloppy Taoist's gaze turned heavy as he said, "This is not the universal energy of heaven and should be another type of energy. However, it is the same as the universal energy of heaven and is specialized in countering evil spirits." Zhuowen was also surprised. He originally thought that only the universal scripture of heaven and earth was special in the 100 outer domains. He did not expect that there would be other similar techniques. Growth of all things. You are the successor of the Aoki aristocratic family? The heretic king's pupil shrank. He had clearly seen the origin of Huyen Lanju's energy. His voice was filled with fear. "It seems that you are not completely ignorant." Huyen Lanju sneered. Then, with a stomp of her right foot, her figure disappeared like a ghost. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, Huyen Lanju appeared in front of the heretic king. Blazing green energy burst out and blasted towards the heretic king. The heretic king's gaze was filled with fear. However, he was not afraid. Instead, he roared and charged forward. Evil black energy surged around the heretic king's body. Bang! 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 Zhuowen and the other three in the forest only saw the green and black lights colliding with each other. Then, terrifying energy ripples erupted. They knew that the two lights represented the battle between Huyen Lanju and the heretic king. The battle between the two became more and more intense. The terrifying shock waves from the battle began to spread. The entire vast wasteland was affected by the shockwaves. So powerful. Not only is Huyen Lanju's cultivation terrifying, but the green energy she used to deal with evil spirits is also not weak. The sloppy Taoist exclaimed. Zhuo nodded. Although his vision was not as wide as the sloppy Taoist's, he could see that Huyen Lanju had the upper hand in this battle. After a few hours, the green light completely suppressed the black light. Moreover, the Heretic King's unwilling roar filled the entire Evil King Island. Looks like Huyen Lanju is going to win. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He could hear the anger in the Heretic King's voice, as well as the fear and dread hidden in his voice. Not necessarily. The Heretic King is not simple. He is mobilizing all the evil spirits on the Evil King Island and is actually devouring them. His strength is constantly rising and has already surpassed Huyen Lanju's. Huyen Lanju is doomed this time. The sloppy Taoist suddenly sighed. Indeed, just as the sloppy Taoist's voice fell, the black light that was originally at a disadvantage suddenly surged with an even more evil energy. The power of the black ball of light also suppressed the green ball of light in one fell swoop. Human, I never thought that your growth of creation would have reached such a level. It really surprised me. If it was in the past, I might not be your opponent. But now you will die in my hands. However, since you can force me to use this move, you can die with no regrets. The Heretic King devoured the evil spirits while letting out a sinister, swallowing sound. At the same time, his scarlet eyes coldly stared at Huyen Lanju. Huyen Lanju's expression was ugly. She originally thought that the Heretic King was just an ordinary fighting evil spirit. Chapter 38:26. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk, while Huyen Lanju was in a daze, the Heretic King made his move. Terrifying sonic booms resounded in the surrounding space. When Huyen Lanju regained his senses, the Heretic King was already in front of him. A gigantic pitch-black fist whistled through the air, bringing with it a terrifying black wind that was chaotic and terrifying. The Heretic King's complete form was much faster than before. Huyen Lanju only had time to put his hands in front of him to protect himself before he was sent flying by the Heretic King's fist. When Huyen Lanju stabilized his body, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He had actually suffered some minor injuries. The Heretic King continued his attack, not giving Huyen Lanju any chance to catch his breath. His gigantic pitch-black fist landed on the void and transformed into countless fist shadows. At this moment, in the eyes of Zhuowen and the other three, the green light was completely suppressed by the black light. Huyen Lanju began to retreat. Sigh. Huyen Lanju is going to lose. He's still not the Heretic King's match. The slovenly Taoist sighed. Zhuowen frowned. He thought for a moment and then strode towards the wasteland. What are you doing? Are you crazy? The slovenly Taoist priest hurriedly pulled Zhuowen and shouted. Although I've only met Brother Huyen a few times, he has stood up for me a few times. I owe him a favor. Now that I see Brother Huyen in a desperate situation, I naturally can't just watch and do nothing. Zhuowen said, Your overwhelming righteousness is too weak. You can't even injure the Heretic King's finger. How are you going to save him? The slovenly Taoist said solemnly. Zhuowen was speechless. He had no idea how to save them. The Heretic King was so powerful that it made him feel suffocated. I'll go. My overwhelming righteousness is the strongest here. I can deal with the Heretic King. The slovenly Taoist suddenly said. Zhuowen was stunned as he looked deeply at the slovenly Taoist. He clearly did not expect that the slovenly Taoist would save them for him. This was something he really did not expect. Daowen, take good care of Daokong and Dokio. I'll be back soon. The slovenly Taoist priest patted Zhuowen's shoulder and strode out of the forest towards the battle zone in the middle of the wasteland. Pucci. Huyen Lanju coughed up a mouthful of blood and was forced to retreat. She placed her hands in front of her to block Evil King's attacks with great difficulty. In his complete state, the Earth Evil King seemed to have turned into a completely different person. His strength became extremely terrifying, and Huyen Lanju was practically being suppressed. According to this trend, Huyen Lanju knew that she would be defeated within 100 moves, and failure meant death. I've miscalculated this time. It's only been a few years, but the evil king's strength has actually become so terrifying. It's all the fault of the guy who provided me with the information. This time, I've been screwed over by that guy. Huyen Lanju's eyes were gloomy. Naturally, he still had other trump cards on him. However, the side effects of that trump card were too great. It could only be used in a life and death situation. He had never expected that he would actually use such a trump card here. He was really unwilling to accept this. Human, weren't you very arrogant just now? Weren't you clamoring for me to be captured alive? Where did that aura from before go? The evil king grinned. His attacks were getting more and more terrifying. Seeing Huyen Lanju constantly coughing up blood, the evil king felt very satisfied. I'm not playing with you anymore. I'll finish you off with this move. Seeing that Huyen Lanju was still persisting, the evil king's eyes revealed an impatient expression as he punched out with his right fist. The wind from the fist whistled, and the surrounding space shattered. Moreover, the wind from the fist carried with it a terrifying wailing sound. Huyen Lanju's face changed. This fist was too terrifying. With her current cultivation, it was impossible for her to block this terrifying fist. Huyen Lanju let out a soft sigh. He knew that he had to use his trump card. Otherwise, he would really die under this punch. Bang! Just as Huyen Lanju made up her mind, an incomparably blazing golden light flew over. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Huyen Lanju and landed on the evil king's body. Immediately after, Huyen Lanju was dumbfounded to find that the originally terrifying evil king was unable to resist the flashing golden light. He was sent flying and fell to the ground in a sorry state. "Oh, little beauty, I'm here to save the beauty." A teasing voice suddenly woke Huyen Lanju up. Then, Huyen Lanju noticed that the person in the golden light was actually the slovenly Taoist who had teased her before. "What did you just say about me?" Huyen Lanju looked at the slovenly Taoist with an unfriendly gaze. The slovenly Taoist was embarrassed by Huyen Lanju's gaze. He quickly raised his hand and said, "Little brother Huyen, I was wrong. I was just joking. Don't be so serious." Huyen Lanju's face suddenly changed and said, "Be careful behind you. The evil king is coming again." The slovenly Taoist placed his hands behind his back and struck a pose that he thought was very handsome. He winked at Huyen Lanju and said, "Little brother Huyen, don't worry. I'm Hong Shenwu. I'm powerful, and my magic power is boundless. A mere evil king is nothing in my eyes. Next, please enjoy my performance to your heart's content." Smack! Before the slovenly Taoist could finish his words, a huge fist whizzed over and smashed into his face. Then, the slovenly Taoist's acting was forcefully interrupted as he fell from the sky in a sorry state. Huyen Lanju looked at the slovenly Taoist with a face full of black lines. Her eyes were filled with disdain. Is this old man addicted to acting? What time is it now? Why is he still posing in front of me? He doesn't even care about his enemy. Old man, you dare to sneak attack me? Today I'll kill you. The evil king was enraged. His scarlet eyes were filled with brutality and killing intent. He decisively gave up on pursuing Huyen Lanju and rushed towards the slovenly Taoist who was still lying in the pit below. The slovenly Taoist's face was covered in dirt. He had suffered heavy injuries. However, he wasn't afraid. Instead, he slowly stood up, and the overwhelming righteousness in his body slowly surged. The slovenly Taoist walked towards the evil king step by step. With every step, the overwhelming righteousness in his body strengthened. When the slovenly Taoist and the evil king were inches apart, the overwhelming righteousness in the Taoist's body surged and exploded. A vast and mighty aura of righteousness surged out like a vast ocean and surrounded the surroundings, driving away the evil. The evil king was shocked. He looked at the slovenly Taoist in disbelief and exclaimed, "Overwhelming righteousness? You actually have such a powerful, overwhelming righteousness. How can someone like you exist in such a small place? Chapter 38:27. How is this possible? This old geezer actually knocked down the heretic king with a single punch? Huyen Lanju was dumbfounded as she looked at the heretic king, who was sent flying so easily. The heretic king, who almost forced her into a desperate situation, was actually sent flying by this unremarkable sloppy Taoist with a single punch. Furthermore, looking at this old geezer's appearance, it seemed like he did it effortlessly. Zhuowen, who was in the forest, was also deeply shocked. Although he knew that the sloppy Taoist cultivation of overwhelming righteousness was very profound, he wasn't sure how profound it was. Previously, he had asked the sloppy Taoist about it, but the old geezer didn't reveal anything. Zhuowen only knew that this old geezer's cultivation of overwhelming righteousness was unfathomable. Especially after learning the Qi refinement chapter, this sloppy Taoist was definitely an expert among experts when it came to dealing with evil spirits. However, he didn't expect the sloppy Taoist to be so powerful that the heretic king could knock him down with a single punch. This is a monster that even a God domain transformation expert like Huyen Lanju couldn't deal with. I still underestimated him. Zhuowen looked at the sloppy Taoist's figure with a complicated gaze. On the other hand, Dao Kong and Dokio, who were beside Zhuowen, didn't think too much as they cheered for the sloppy Taoist. It's actually overwhelming righteousness. Could these guys be from the overwhelming righteousness family? Wasn't that mysterious family already exterminated? I can actually still see the remnants of their descendants. Huyen Lanju muttered to herself as she silently looked at the overwhelming righteousness on the sloppy Taoist's body. Her eyes were filled with shock and confusion. Why? Why are there still humans in this world who cultivate overwhelming righteousness? The heretic king roared in horror. Then he turned into a puff of black smoke and quickly escaped into the distance. The arrogant heretic king was actually frightened by a single punch from the sloppy Taoist. He didn't even have the courage to face the sloppy Taoist head-on. Instead, he escaped. The sloppy Taoist squinted his eyes. He still stood in the same spot as he clenched his right hand. Instantly, the vast and mighty righteous energy turned into a huge hand and appeared above the escaping evil king in the blink of an eye. The evil king let out a blood-curdling scream as he was smashed into the ground. Then, he was pinned to the ground, unable to move at all. The slovenly Taoist priest walked over slowly and stopped not far away from the heretic king. Evil king, you won't be able to escape from me. You've killed so many cultivators. Today is your day of retribution. A rare solemn expression appeared on the sloppy Taoist's face. He waved his right hand in the air, and the overwhelming righteousness condensed into the illusory image of a golden book that was several thousand feet long. The illusory golden book slowly opened, and countless densely packed golden characters appeared on its surface. These runes seemed to have magical powers. They flew out from the golden book and landed on the evil king's body, wrapping around his entire body. The Diablo revealed a look of fear. These densely packed runes contained some sort of special power. When the runes attached themselves to the evil king's body actually started smoking and disappearing. The slovenly Taoist priest planned to use the overwhelming righteousness to refine the evil king. Isn't your exorcist family the same? How many of our cultivators have you killed? What's the difference between you and us? The evil king roared. Exorcist family? What the hell is that? I don't know. I only know that you evil cultivators are the enemy of us cultivators. You deserve to die. The slovenly Taoist priest laughed coldly. Then, the golden runes became denser and denser, landing on the evil king's body. The evil king's body kept shrinking under the refinement of the golden runes. Endless black smoke rose around him, and an unpleasant stench was emitted. You're not the successor of the overwhelming righteousness family. The evil king realized that something was wrong and hurriedly asked. The slovenly Taoist priest shrugged and said, "This is the first time I've heard of the overwhelming righteousness family. Since you're not from the overwhelming righteousness family, why do you use the overwhelming righteousness? Moreover, I have no conflict with you. Let me go, and I'll immediately hand over the human man you're looking for. How about that?" The evil king spoke very quickly. He was now truly afraid of this slovenly Taoist priest. The overwhelming righteousness was much more tyrannical than Huyen Lanju's myriad growth. Moreover, this slovenly Taoist priest's overwhelming righteousness was also much stronger. He had no chance of winning against this slovenly Taoist priest. In the end, he would only be refined. "Don't worry, I won't immediately kill you. I'm just teaching you a lesson." The slovenly Taoist priest revealed a mischievous smile and no longer spoke. Instead, he urged the golden runes to speed up the refinement of the evil king. The evil king screamed miserably. Under the refinement of the golden runes, his body kept shrinking. In the end, his huge body turned into a small palm-sized evil king. Of course, the majority of the evil king's power had been refined by the golden runes. Now he was extremely weak. "Damn, old man, what are you trying to do?" The evil king saw that his body had become so small, and the golden runes around him were fading away. He had a bad premonition and hurriedly shouted. The slovenly Taoist priest chuckled. He grabbed the evil king and threw him into the spiritual ring. The evil king was too weak and couldn't resist the slovenly Taoist priest. He could only watch as he was thrown into the spiritual ring like a toy. After all this was done, Zhuowen, Dao Kong, and Dokyo came over. "Master, you're so powerful. You even dealt with such a terrifying evil king. I admire you so much." Dokyo's eyes lit up as he looked at the slovenly Taoist priest. Dao Kong crossed his arms and said in an old and experienced manner, "Sure enough, it's my divine foresight. I knew that master would win. I really admire myself." Zhuowen glanced sideways at the two little Taoist children and silently rolled his eyes. He knew that when the unkempt Taoist walked toward evil king, the two brats had been cursing him, especially Dao Kong. He had said that the unkempt Taoist was definitely going to die, and he wanted to quickly run away. The slovenly Taoist priest struck a pose and shook his head. With a lonely face, he said, "This is the feeling of being lonely at the top. It's really rare to be lonely and seek defeat." Zhuowen facepalmed. This old man was addicted to acting cool. He could say anything. He had never seen anyone who was more pretentious than him. "You guys aren't really from the Grand Noble family, right?" Huyen Lanju slowly walked over and looked at the slovenly Taoist priest with a strange expression. Chapter 38:28. Huyen Lanju was dumbfounded. Is this sloppy Taoist stupid? He's not answering the question. Zhuowen coughed a few times and awkwardly said, "Brother Huyen, our sect master's mind might not be clear recently. Please don't mind him." "All right, what is the Hao Ran Grand family that you mentioned earlier?" "I've never heard of it." Zhuowen had a premonition that the Hao Ran Grand family that Huyen Lanju spoke of was definitely strange. Otherwise, Huyen Lanju wouldn't have shown such a strange expression when she asked them. "You guys actually don't know about the Hao Ran Grand family? Then why do you guys know how to use Hao Ran energy?" Huyen Lanju asked in surprise. "This is a cultivation technique that our sect master accidentally obtained. This cultivation technique is called the Heaven and Earth Hao Scripture. However, it's too incomplete," Zhuowen answered cautiously. From Huyen Lanju's expression, he could tell that this Hao Ran energy was very important. In addition, Han Wu Shengzhen didn't hesitate to destroy the Hong sect for this cultivation technique. Therefore, he became vigilant. His words were also half-truths. An incomplete version of the Heaven and Earth Hao Scripture. "You guys are really lucky to obtain this cultivation technique." Huyen Lanju revealed a look of understanding. No wonder Zhuowen and the others didn't know about the Hao Ran Grand family, even though they cultivated Hao Ran energy. "Brother Huyen, since you know about the origin of the Heaven and Earth Hao Scripture, can you tell us about it?" Zhuowen probed. Zhuowen knew that since the sloppy Taoist had made his move, Huyen Lanzhu had already recognized the Hao Ran energy. Therefore, it was useless for him to continue hiding it. Moreover, from Huyen Lanzhu's previous actions, Zhuowen felt that she wasn't a treacherous person. Therefore, he openly admitted it. The sloppy Taoist stood to the side and didn't say anything. Obviously, he had tacitly approved of Zhuowen's actions. In fact, he also wanted to know the origin of the heaven and earth Haoran scripture. He had cultivated this cultivation technique his entire life, but he didn't know the exact origin of this cultivation technique. The heaven and earth Haoran scripture is the exorcism technique of the Hao Ran Grand family. At the same time, the Hao Ran Grand family was once the strongest exorcism family in the Hexi realm. You guys shouldn't know about the exorcism family, right? Huyen Lanzhu suddenly realized the problem and asked Zhuowen and the others. Zhuowen and the other three nodded. They really did not know what an exorcist aristocratic family was. Then, let's start from an exorcism family. Huyen Lanzhu sighed and patiently explained to Zhuowen and the others. The 100 outer domain in the 100 outer world is boundless, 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 grand vast. The 100 outer realms was only a very small part of the chaotic cosmos, but most of the living beings were gathered there. In this world, where there is yin, there is yang. Where there is light, there is darkness. There were a large number of creatures in the outer realms. No matter how powerful these creatures were, they were not invincible. They had natural enemies. Their natural enemy was evil spirits. Evil spirits were born from the primal chaos. In the darkness of the primal chaos, there were countless evil spirits. The number and strength of evil spirits were much greater than living beings. A long time ago, the living beings of the 100 outer domain had yet to invent a source of light that was the natural enemy of evil spirits. At that time, the night in the 100 outer domain was very dangerous. Every time night fell, many living beings would die. At that time, there was a group of people who were born with a source of light in their bodies. They could restrain evil spirits and couldn't get close to them. These people who were born with a source of light in their bodies were called exorcists. In that era, exorcists were godlike existences. Many cultivators chose to attach themselves to exorcists and became their vassals. Among these vassal cultivators, there were many who were extremely powerful. They were existences that far surpassed the exorcists. Although they were powerful, their methods couldn't deal with evil spirits. Once night fell, their strength would be useless. In the end, they could only become living targets for evil spirits. Ordinary evil spirits might not be able to do anything to powerful cultivators. However, powerful evil spirits were enough to kill them. Although there weren't many exorcists, they were very good at dealing with evil spirits. As the number of vassal cultivators increased, the exorcists started to form their own forces. These were the early stages of the exorcists' aristocratic families. As they continued to develop, the cultivators started to discover that the source of light emitted by the fluorite could resist evil spirits. With the fluorite, the cultivators could survive even if they didn't attach themselves to the exorcists. As a result, some cultivators started to leave the exorcist organization. However, the exorcists who enjoyed the respect of tens of thousands of people gradually became conceited. They rejected the cultivators' request to leave. As a result, there was an irreconcilable conflict between the exorcists and ordinary cultivators. As the fluorite became widespread, this conflict became more and more intense. In the end, it led to a war between the exorcists and ordinary cultivators. That battle was very bitter and tragic. The exorcists were blessed by the heavens. They had the power to resist evil spirits. However, there were too few of them. Many exorcists' aristocratic families were exterminated. Large amounts of their exorcism manuals were also snatched away. After the exorcists were defeated, they started to realize that they were no match for the cultivators. As a result, they proposed peace talks. The cultivators also accepted the exorcists' offer. Although they coveted the exorcism manuals on the exorcists' bodies, they found that the exorcist cultivation manuals were too difficult. However, they discovered that the Exorcism Classic was too difficult for ordinary people to cultivate. Furthermore, without a certain level of talent, it was impossible for one to master it. The exorcism manuals were tailor-made for exorcists. Although there were some ordinary cultivators who had the talent to cultivate the exorcism manuals, they were far from being as powerful as the innate exorcists. In the 100 outer realms, where evil spirits ran rampant, the cultivators had a source of light. However, the source of light wasn't perfect. Some truly powerful evil spirits could ignore the source of light for a short period of time and enter the source of light to destroy it. As for such powerful evil spirits, they needed to rely on the exorcist's aristocratic families to expel them. After the exorcists and ordinary cultivators came to an agreement, they began to live in peace. As for the surviving exorcists' aristocratic families, they went into seclusion and rarely appeared in the outside world. As a result, very few people knew about the exorcists' aristocratic families. Zhuowen, the slovenly Taoist, and the others were even more clueless about it. After listening to Huyen Lanju's narration, Zhuowen was puzzled. According to Huyen Lanju, the universal scripture of heaven and earth was also an exorcism manual. Wasn't this manual something that only exorcists could cultivate? Why was he, Daokong, Dokyo, and the slovenly Taoist able to cultivate it? However, the universal scripture of heaven and earth is an exception. This is a very mystical exorcism manual, because the threshold is very low. As long as one has a little bit of talent in exorcism, they can cultivate it. Moreover, they can cultivate it to large success. Not only that, the universal scripture of heaven and earth's might is exceptionally terrifying. In the Hushi realm, it's not an exaggeration to call it the #1 exorcism manual. Chapter 38-29. After listening to Huyen Lanju's explanation, Zhuowen and the other three revealed a look of relief. They did not expect that the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra was not only the #1 exorcism technique, but also extremely suitable for ordinary cultivators. It was no wonder that a large sect like Hongwu Shengzhen mobilized many subsects to destroy the Hong sect in order to obtain the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. Let me give the four of you a piece of advice. It's best not to use the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra in front of others. Not only do cultivators want to obtain this cultivation technique, even many exorcist families have been coveting it for a long time. Even if you only have an incomplete copy, it will still cause a lot of trouble. Huyen Lanju said, "We know about this. If it weren't for saving you, this old man wouldn't have exposed this technique." The slovenly Taoist said with a dignified look. Huyen Lanju was startled. She had been focusing on the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra and had forgotten that the slovenly Taoist had saved her life. "Senior, this junior still doesn't know your name. Please tell me your name." Huyen Lanju solemnly bowed to the slovenly Taoist and said respectfully. The slovenly Taoist revealed a proud look and said, "Beauty, nephew Huyen, this poor Taoist is called Hong Shenwu. And I hit it off at first sight. You can call me Big Brother Hong." Huyen Lanju bowed again and said, "Thank you, Big Brother Hong, for saving Lanju's life. Lanju owes you a life. Lanju will always remember this kindness in her heart." The slovenly Taoist scratched his head embarrassedly and waved his hand. "Nephew Huyen, you are too polite. You are so beautiful. No, you are Daowen's friend. Naturally, I can't leave you in the lurch. You are treating me like an outsider." Zhuowen was speechless as he looked at the slovenly Taoist beside him. Does this guy know how to speak? His words are so unreliable. On the other hand, Huyen Lanju's gaze was calm. She did not reveal any expression because of the slovenly Taoist's slip of the tongue. "Brother Huyen, your purpose for coming to Evil King Island seems to be different from ours, right?" Zhuowen suddenly asked. From the conversation between Huyen Lanju and the Evil King, he could tell that Huyen Lanju's purpose in coming to Evil King Island was to capture the Evil King alive and not for the Great Music Bar's mission. Huyen Lanju didn't intend to hide anything. He explained, I am the descendant of one of the exorcist families, the Aoki family. When I learned that a fighting level evil spirit appeared in the Wukong state, the upper echelons of the family sent me to investigate. If the news is true, then let me capture this evil spirit alive. Of course, if we can't capture them alive, we could just kill them. Speaking up to this point, Huyen Lanju bitterly smiled and continued. However, I didn't expect that the evil king wasn't an ordinary fighter-level evil spirit. He's actually so powerful. He's already half a step into the category of man-level evil spirits. Zhuowen nodded and then said to the slovenly Taoist, Sect Master, bring the evil king out. The slovenly Taoist priest seemed to know what Zhuowen wanted to do. He took out the palm-sized evil king from the spirit ring and threw it to Zhuowen. At this moment, the evil king was no longer as mighty as before. His strength couldn't even compare to the lowest level evil spirits. Lowly human, what are you trying to do? Take your dirty hands away. The evil king struggled in Zhuowen's hands and roared furiously. Zhuowen ignored the evil king's roar and asked indifferently, Tell me, where is the male pet of the great music bar? Oof, do you think I'll tell you? Unless you let me go, I might be merciful and tell you. The evil king sneered. Zhuowen looked at the evil king coldly. Then, a powerful and righteous energy surged in his right hand. It turned into a violent electric current and landed on the evil king's body. Instantly, the evil king screamed miserably as his body twitched from the electric current. You! How dare you! The evil king screamed. Unfortunately, what greeted him was an even more violent electric current. You bastard human! You! That's enough. That's enough. If you continue, this king's soul will really scatter. Finally, after a round of torture, the evil king gave in. His pitch-black body has become somewhat dim and illusory, as if he will be annihilated at any moment. Just like what the evil king said, if he continues to shock him, his soul will really die. Next, Zhuowen found out the exact location of the male pet from the evil king. It is in the center of the Evil King Island. In other words, the Evil King's immortal cave. Thus, the group followed the Evil King's instructions and entered the most central area of the Evil King Island. Although the Evil King Island was filled with evil spirits, Zhuowen used the Evil King as a shield, blocking the ground in front of him. Instantly, the evil spirits on the Evil King Island were afraid of the Evil King's aura and did not dare to attack Zhuowen's group. The Evil King's immortal cave is located in a large cave in the central mountain range. They found a male pet of the Great Music Bar in the cave. It has to be said that the owner of the Great Music Bar has high standards. This male pet is indeed a rarely seen handsome man. However, in terms of beauty, Zhuowen feels that this male pet is slightly inferior to Huyen Lanju. When the male pet found out that Zhuowen's group is here to save him, he actually burst into tears. He kept thanking them with tears and snot flowing down his face. Looking at this guy on the Evil King Island, he must have suffered a great deal of psychological torture. Huyen Lanju's original intention was not to be a male pet. Therefore, she generously gave the male pet to Zhuowen. Outside the Evil King Island, Zhuowen, Huyen Lanju, Slovenly Taoist, and the rest are standing on the deck of the divine ship. Zhuowen suddenly asked Huyen Lanju, Brother Huyen, are you still going back to the Great Music Bar? Huyen Lanju was startled, then shook her head and said, No, I'm going back to the Liyuan main domain. There is nothing for me to do here. Zhuowen pondered for a moment, then handed the palm-sized Evil King to Huyen Lanju and said, You once told me that your purpose in coming to the Evil King Island is to capture the Evil King alive. I don't know why you want to capture the Evil King alive, but I know that the Evil King is of no use to us right now, so I'll hand him over to you. Huyen Lanju was startled as she looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. She never thought that Zhuowen would hand the Evil King over to her just like that. Happiness came too suddenly. What? Huyen Lanju was so shocked that she subconsciously blurted out the question in her heart. That's because we're already friends. Zhuowen grinned. Huyen Lanzhu took the evil king and hesitated for a moment. Then, she took out a book with a green cover and handed it over to Zhuowen. This is when Zhuowen saw the words myriad growth scripture on the cover. He immediately knew that this should be the exorcism scripture of the Aoki clan. Brother Daowen, this myriad growth scripture is the exorcism scripture of my Aoki clan. In this scripture, there's a secret technique that can conceal the aura of exorcism energy. Chapter 38:30. Since it's a secret technique, why did you give me the entire ancient book? I'm afraid this isn't good, Zhuowen said doubtfully. Huyen Lanzhu said, somewhat embarrassedly, this is a copy of the myriad growth scripture. It's the one that I always carry with me. It's not the complete version. There are only 2 levels of cultivation in it. I've already cultivated this copy to the large success stage. Why go back? I'll be able to get a higher level copy. Therefore, this copy isn't of much use to me. As for the Aoki clan, you don't have to worry about it. The main body of the myriad growth scripture is very difficult to cultivate. Unless you have the bloodline of the Aoki clan or you have extraordinary talent, you won't be able to cultivate it. In the Liyuan main region, there are actually many forces that have copies of the myriad growth scripture. However, the Aoki clan has never cared about it because they know that the myriad growth scripture is too difficult to cultivate. Giving this copy to you isn't a violation of the clan's rules. Hearing this, Zhuowen accepted the myriad growth scripture. Although he didn't have much contact with Huyen Lanzhu, he gradually understood his character and knew that the latter didn't like to owe others favors. The reason why he gave all the copies of the myriad growth scripture to Huyen Lanzhu was so that he wouldn't feel like he owed Huyen Lanzhu anything. Brother Daowen, don't worry. I'll keep your matter a secret. I won't divulge anything. If I violate this oath, I, Huyen Lanzhu, will be struck by lightning. My soul will scatter, and I'll die a horrible death. Huyen Lanzhu made a heavy oath and bid farewell to Zhuowen. Then, he took out his divine ship and left. Sigh, this Huyen Lanzhu is really beautiful. Why is she a guy? What a pity. The slovenly Taoist stood beside Zhuowen and looked at Huyen Lanzhu's departing figure. He couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Let's go. Zhuowen shrugged. He didn't want to answer the slovenly Taoist question. Instead, he steered the divine ship towards the great music lane. About half a day later, the divine ship arrived at Lingshao City, where the great music bar was located. When the divine ship landed on the Lingshao Plaza, Lu Xiaodao, the vice owner of the great music lane, was already waiting with a group of people. When Zhuowen found the male pet, Zhuowen used the jade strip that Lu Xiaodao gave him to send a message to Lu Xiaodao. Zhuowen discovered that in front of Lu Xiaodao, there was a tall and sturdy figure. This figure was nearly 10 feet tall, with bulging muscles all over his body, filled with a sense of enormous strength. If one only looked at his body, their first impression would definitely be that he was a fierce man. However, when Zhuowen's attention landed on that figure's head, he sucked in a mouthful of cold air. This person had 2 braids on his head and a square face. If it weren't for the 2 braids, Zhuowen would have thought that this person was a man. However, the 2 braids that were obviously for women pulled Zhuowen back to reality. This tall figure should be a woman. When a male pet saw the tall woman, he was so excited that tears filled his eyes. He rolled and crawled, rushing into the woman's embrace. Owner, you scare me to death. You scare me to death. I almost died on the evil King Island. As the male pet spoke, he cried silently, with a pitiful look on his face. As for the tall woman, she hugged the male pet tightly and said apologetically, Concubine Lin, I'm really sorry. I made you suffer for so many days. Fortunately, you came back safe and sound. Congratulations, owner, for saving the beauty. Lu Xiaodao led a group of cultivators of the great music lane and knelt on one knee, congratulating one after another. Zhuowen looked at this strange scene, and the corner of his eyes twitched. In his impression, with such a beautiful name like the Great Music Bar, the owner of the bar should be a graceful and beautiful woman. The owner of the great music lane in front of him was a far cry from her. The owner of the great music lane and the male pet were affectionate for a while. Then, she pulled the male pet's hand and walked in front of Zhuowen and the others. I am the owner of the great music lane, Che Xiaorui. Brother Daowen, this time, you helped me find concubine Lin and made a great contribution. Thank you. Che Xiaorui's voice was coarse and rough. It was completely the voice of a fierce man. Although he felt strange, Zhuowen's willpower was still firm. He maintained his calm and said, Owner, you are too polite. Since we accepted the mission of the Great Music Lane, we naturally have to do our best to complete it. Che Xiaorui laughed and patted Zhuowen's shoulder. The terrifying strength made Zhuowen fall down. Brother Daowen is indeed a straightforward person. Xiao Dao, take Brother Daowen to receive his reward first. Then, come to the main hall to see me. As Che Xiaorui spoke, she hugged the male pet's waist and floated away. Brother Daowen, come with me. The reward for this mission is Hongwu Shengzhen's trial spot and 100,000 chaos gems. I'll take you to receive the 100,000 chaos gems first. Lu Xiaodao walked in front of Zhuowen, appearing extremely polite and respectful. The fact that Zhuowen could survive on Evil King Island and bring back a male pet was enough to show that he was not simple. This person was enough to earn his respect. 100,000 chaos gems, the sloppy Daoist, Daokong, and Dokyo's eyes lit up. They had never seen so many chaos gems in their lives. Now that it was so easy to obtain, they were very excited. Under Lu Xiaodao's lead, they arrived at a spacious hall. Then, Lu Xiaodao entered a room deep in the hall. After a while, he took out a spirit ring and handed it to Zhuowen. There are 100,000 chaos gems in this spirit ring. Brother Daowen, please count them. Lu Xiaodao said with a smile. Zhuowen scanned it with his divine telekinesis and immediately knew that there were exactly 100,000 chaos gems in the spirit ring. Zhuowen casually handed the spirit ring to the sloppy Daoist and asked, Owner Lu, the spot for Hongwu Shengzhen. Don't worry, it will naturally be given to you. However, the spot token is in the owner's hands. Now, the owner is going to get it. I'll take you to the hall first. Lu Xiaodao smiled slightly, stood up, and led Zhuowen and the others out of the hall. They walked toward another hall. This was the main hall of the Great Music Bar. The decorations inside were magnificent and incomparably gorgeous. Zhuowen did not wait long before Che Xiaorui came out again. She handed a golden token to Zhuowen and said in a serious tone, Brother Daowen, Hongwu Shengzhen's trial is very cruel. The survival rate of every trial is less than 1 in 10. Many young geniuses who participate in the trial perish in that trial. Chapter 38-31. Che Xiaorui glanced deeply at Zhuowen, and then she roared with laughter. Brother Daowen is really a dragon amongst men. Then I'll wish Brother Daowen success in the following trials. Zhuowen smiled faintly. His words were polite, but he didn't take it to heart. He knew his own strength very well. Although he was only at the peak of the Heaven Ascension Change realm, his strength far exceeded his cultivation level. No matter how powerful Hongwu Shengzhen was, the entrance trial would not be so difficult that he could not pass it. After that, Che Xiaorui held a grand banquet in the Great Music Bar to celebrate the successful return of Qin Xiaobei. Zhuowen did not plan to attend the banquet. He wanted to go back immediately. However, the scruffy Taoist priest liked to join in the fun. He insisted that Qin Xiaobei stay at the Great Music Bar for a few days. After the banquet, Zhuowen and the other three returned to the Hong sect. Faction leader, the chaotic energy in the Hong sect is too thin. I plan to go to the Demon King path and cultivate in seclusion for 3 years. Zhuowen said calmly to the scruffy Taoist priest in front of him in the main hall of the Hong sect. When he first entered the Demon King Island, he noticed that the chaotic energy was extremely rich. It was comparable to the Blessed Enclave in Zhongzhou. However, The chaotic energy in the Hong sect was so thin that Zhuowen suspected that he would not even be able to break through the Heaven Ascension Change realm if he stayed in the Hong sect for 3 years. The scruffy Taoist priest thought about it and said, "How about this? Let's go together. The Hong sect is not suitable for cultivators like us to stay for long." When I entered the Demon King Island, I also noticed that it is a good place to stay. I plan to move the Hong sect to the Demon King Island. Zhuowen was stunned. He thought about it for a while and nodded. Faction leader, that's a good idea. Although the Demon King Island had lost its Demon King, it was still a paradise for evil spirits. It was a place where many more powerful cultivators gathered. Moreover, the Demon King Island had been famous for many years. Many cultivators did not dare to enter the Demon King Island. However, they cultivated the righteous energy, so they were not afraid of the evil spirits. On the contrary, these evil spirits could be used as nourishment for them, assisting them in cultivating the nature energy. In the next few days, the shabby Taoist, Dao Kong, and Dokyo were very busy. They were searching the ruins of the Hong sect to see if there was anything useful. Originally, Zhuowen did not want to join the fun, but he was pulled by the sloppy Taoist to let him use his divine sense to search. Among the remaining 4 members of the Hong sect, Zhuowen's cultivation level was the highest, and his divine sense was the strongest as well. Therefore, he was the best candidate to scour the ruins of the Hong sect. During Zhuowen's careful search, he really did find some damaged cultivation techniques, god artifacts, and some remnant chaos gems in the ruins. This is... When Zhuowen arrived at the back mountain of the Hong sect, his divine sense swept across a small ruin. He stopped and looked curiously at the small ruin in front of him. From the traces of the ruins, it could be seen that before the ruins were intact, it should have been a small palace. The reason why he stopped was because his divine sense had sensed a restrictive spell onto the ruins. This restriction fluctuation was very faint. If Zhuowen's spiritual sense wasn't very sharp, he wouldn't have been able to detect this restriction fluctuation at all. Zhuowen landed on the ruins, and with a wave of his sleeve, the rubble under his feet was cleared, revealing a dark tunnel. This tunnel should lead to the underground of the ruins. Zhuowen pondered for a moment, and finally decided to step into the tunnel. Roar! 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 The moment Zhuowen stepped into the tunnel, a gust of wind swept over him, and a ferocious roar erupted. Zhuowen snorted and struck out with his right hand. The righteous energy turned into a ball of lightning and condensed in his palm. Suddenly, the roar turned into a scream of agony, and then disappeared. These evil spirits are really everywhere. Zhuowen shook his head. It was the evil spirit that attacked him. The tunnel was pitch black, and it was the most comfortable place for evil spirits to rest. The number of evil spirits in the tunnel was extremely shocking. Zhuowen had to circulate the righteous energy with all his might to cover his whole body. Only then could he barely block the shocking number of evil spirits in the tunnel. Zhuowen walked in the tunnel for about 4 hours and finally came to the end of the tunnel. What appeared in front of him was a stone door with complicated patterns on the surface. On the surface of the stone door, there were bursts of restrictive spell fluctuations. In Zhuowen's divine sense, the weak restrictive spell fluctuations were emitted from the stone door. This is not an ordinary restrictive spell. Zhuowen observed for a moment and found that the restrictive spell on the surface of the stone door was far beyond his level. With his current level of Array Dao, it was impossible for him to break the restrictive spell on the stone door. The restrictive spell is weakening? Zhuowen found that as he gradually approached the stone door, he keenly found that the restrictive spell fluctuations on the stone door were weakening. When he was far away from the stone door, the restrictive spell strengthened again. Zhuowen tried a few times and finally understood the principle of the restrictive spell. The key to breaking the restrictive spell was the righteous energy. Zhuowen stretched out his right hand. In his right hand, he condensed 80% of the righteous energy in his body. Then, he placed his right hand on the stone door. He found that the restrictive spell on the stone door was so weak that it almost disappeared. The complicated patterns on the surface of the stone door were bursting with light similar to the righteous energy. Creak. At the same time, the glowing stone door slowly opened to both sides. What appeared behind the stone door was a spacious stone room. The moment the stone door opened, Zhuowen felt a very familiar aura rushing towards him. The aura of Hongmeng. Zhuowen's eyes widened. He looked surprised. Then, he thought of something and stepped into the stone room. The layout of the stone room was very simple. Other than the stone table in the center, the surroundings were completely empty. Furthermore, after entering the stone chamber, Zhuowen did not encounter any other evil spirits. It was as if the evil spirits were afraid of something in the stone room. Zhuowen was not unfamiliar with this thing. It was the enormous righteous energy. The righteous energy was extremely vast. It was much stronger than when the slovenly Taoist priest fought with the evil king. In the face of this overwhelming righteous energy, Zhuowen even felt a sense of inferiority and inferiority. Apart from that, he also felt the familiar primordial aura in the righteous energy. It was the righteous energy that was mixed with the primordial aura. The color of the energy was not pure gold. Instead, it was purple gold. Zhuowen's body was trembling. The righteous energy in the stone room gave him too much pressure. If he did not resist it with all his might, he would have prostrated himself on the ground. Chapter 38-32. This is the key to the primordial stone. Zhuowen was really shocked. The purple key on the stone table was almost identical to the key sealed at the bottom of the crater in the Ascension sect. Zhuowen had thought that it would be as difficult as finding a needle in a haystack to find the other keys. He did not expect to find the second key in the ruins of the Hong sect. Zhuowen was so excited that he could not help but take a step forward to grab the key. Plop! However, the moment he took a step forward, his legs gave way and he knelt on the ground. The pressure in the stone room was too terrifying. He had to use all his strength to stabilize himself. Now, he had used up all his strength to take a step forward. He knelt on the ground and could not get up no matter how hard he tried. Damn it! I have to find a way to get rid of this pressure. Zhuowen was sweating profusely. His clothes were soaked and his face was pale. He knew that the longer he stayed in the stone room, the worse it would be for him. However, the problem now was that he could not even move a finger. How was he going to get out of the stone room? Even if Zhuowen kept using the nature energy, it was useless. The purplish gold nature energy was more powerful than the nature energy. It suppressed the nature energy to the point that it could not retaliate. My name is Hong Shenwu. I am the founder of the Hong Shenwu sect. I unintentionally obtained the universal scripture of heaven and earth. I treated it like a treasure and cultivated it tirelessly. I finally achieved great success. The fact that you can enter this stone room means that you are the successor of the universal scripture of heaven and earth. The key that contains the primordial chi is hidden in this stone room. I'm not sure what the use of the key is. However, I know that the primordial chi in the key can greatly increase one's comprehension. The primordial chi is mysterious and unpredictable. I have been meditating in the stone room for countless years and finally merged the primordial chi and the nature energy into one to form a brand new nature energy. I named it the Grand Primordial Chi. Junior, those who enter the stone chamber and wish to obtain the key must comprehend the vast primordial chi. Only then will you be able to resist the vast primordial chi within the stone chamber. If you don't even have this bit of comprehension, then you can die here and become a skeleton in this stone room. Just as Zhuowen was struggling incessantly, an oppressive and awe-inspiring voice came from the stone room. In Zhuowen's ears, this voice was actually exactly the same as the sect leader of the Hong sect, the slovenly Taoist. Moreover, this so-called founder's name was actually Hong Shenwu. Wasn't that the name of the sloppy Taoist? Could the shabby Taoist be the founder of the Hong sect? Zhuowen's heart was filled with doubts, but the current predicament did not allow him to let his imagination run wild. He was in a terrible state now. If what the voice said was true, then he would die here if he couldn't comprehend the vast primordial chi before he died. After knowing the way out of this predicament, Zhuowen calmed down. He had obtained a primordial stone and a primordial key a long time ago. He was all too familiar with the primordial chi. His comprehension had also improved imperceptibly. After calming down, Zhuowen began to circulate both the vast righteousness and primordial energy within his body. The two different types of energy were like two slithering snakes, constantly moving within Zhuowen's meridians. Zhuowen controlled the two types of energy to come into contact with each other at the same point in his meridians. Once the two types of energy came into contact, there was a sudden burst of terrifying energy. Then, Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned extremely pale. Zhuowen's eyes flashed viciously as he continued to try to fuse the two types of energy. He knew very well that if he did not succeed, he would die. Every time he tried, Zhuowen's internal injuries worsened. His entire body was drenched in blood, and he looked like a ferocious, bloody man. However, Zhuowen became calmer and calmer. Every time he tried, he gained enough experience for himself. This is the time. Zhuowen roared and once again fused the two types of energy within his meridians. The golden vast righteousness and the purple primordial energy gathered together. The two types of energy kept tumbling, and the two colors kept intersecting and separating as if they were struggling. Zhuowen took a deep breath. His eyes were terrifyingly calm. However, the moment the two types of energy finally fused together, Zhuowen spat out a mouthful of blood. However, his eyes became brighter and brighter. The golden and purple colors in his meridians finally fused together and turned into a strange purple-gold energy. At first, this purple-gold energy was very weak, like an insignificant spark. However, this spark was like a prairie fire. It quickly grew stronger and spread. In an instant, Zhuowen's meridians were filled with this strange purple-gold energy. At the same time, the boundless purple-gold energy that filled the stone chamber seemed to have found a leader as it started to converge toward Zhuowen's body. A steady stream of purple-gold energy surged into Zhuowen's body. It flowed through his flesh and blood, his meridians, and his bones. In the end, his internal injuries gradually healed. At this moment, the terrifying might within the stone chamber also completely disappeared. This energy is devouring my shattered divine power? After Zhuowen fused with the vast primordial energy, this new type of energy was extremely domineering. It actually started to devour the shattered divine power within his body. After a short while, the vast shattered divine power within Zhuowen's body was completely devoured by the vast primordial energy. It transformed into a brand new type of energy that was of a higher level. The purple-gold energy in the stone chamber is even more effective than chaotic energy. After absorbing all of the purplish-golden energy within the stone chamber, Zhuowen's body began to nurture an energy that was far more powerful than shattered divine power. Thus, his cultivation base naturally progressed to the void god transformation stage. Boom, boom, boom. It was as if Zhuowen's entire body had undergone a metamorphosis. A thunderous boom erupted from his body, and he was filled with power. Crap, the void god transformation stage tribulation is about to descend. Zhuowen's expression shifted slightly. In the instant that he made his breakthrough, he could sense the aura of tribulation gathering in the air above the ruins. Zhuowen knew just how terrifying his tribulation would be. If he were to transcend his tribulation in the Hong sect, he would definitely raise the Hong sect and the surrounding mountain ranges to the ground. He grabbed the purple key on the stone table and put it into his great world before taking a step forward and disappearing from the stone chamber. Dawen, where did you go? You've been gone for half a day. Zhuowen had only just appeared above the ruins of the Hong sect when he saw the sloppy Taoist leading Dao Kong and Dokyo toward him. Stop right there. Wait for me at the Hong sect for a few days. I need to transcend my void, God, transformation, stage, tribulation. After saying this, Zhuowen summoned his divine boat and left the Hong sect. Void, God transformation stage? Senior Marshal Brother made a breakthrough? Dao Kong faltered slightly as he turned to the sloppy Taoist with a confused expression. The sloppy Taoist didn't say anything. His gaze fell upon the small ruins at the back of the mountain. A dark passageway had appeared within the small ruins. The sloppy Taoist stared at the dark passageway in silence. He stood rooted to the spot, as if he had been possessed. Then he hugged his head with his hands as his entire body trembled. Chapter 38-33. Boom, boom. In the dusky sky, thunder rumbled and roared. Streaks of black lightning struck down from the sky, as if they were terrifying divine swords that could pierce through the horizon. Splat! The black lightning bolts landed on Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen to stagger and spit out a mouthful of blood. Zhuowen continued to fly in the northwest direction and entered a mountainous region. There are almost no cultivators here, not even the aura of living beings. It was dead silent. Zhuowen took a deep breath and stopped in a valley. He raised his head and looked at the huge black hole in the sky. Strange and powerful black lightning bolts were brewing in the black hole. The black lightning bolts were definitely not ordinary tribulation energy. They carried with them a terrifying aura of destruction. Zhuowen was struck several times along the way, and was almost struck until his soul scattered and scattered. The lightning bolts not only targeted the physical body, but also affected the soul. It was an extremely terrifying black lightning. Boom, boom, boom. The black lightning bolts fell again, each time more terrifying than the last. Zhuowen had no choice but to face it head-on. Terrifying black lightning exploded around him, spreading out countless threads of lightning, making him look like a god of lightning. However, Zhuowen did not have it easy. The lightning energy was too terrifying. His physical body and soul were greatly affected. However, Zhuowen did not cower because of this. Instead, he used the black lightning bolts to temper his physical body and soul. After Zhuowen's shattered divine power merged with the overwhelming righteous energy and grand mist aura, it formed a new energy that was extremely powerful. It helped him block most of the black lightning's energy. Zhuowen even found that the black lightning seemed to be afraid of the new energy in his body. After the fusion of the new divine power, Zhuowen named it the overwhelming grand mist divine power. The shattered divine power in his body was completely replaced by the overwhelming grand mist divine power. His strength underwent a transformation as a result. His divine soul took this opportunity to practice the ancient sword visualization painting. Not long after, a blazing and resplendent light flickered between his brows. Within the light, there was a vast and powerful sword that soared into the sky as if it could cut through the heavens. Zhuowen abruptly opened his eyes, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. At this moment, he seemed to have understood something. The visualization of the ancient sword had broken through the shackles and reached the 5th level. His soul had also undergone a transformation because of this. The power of his divine sense had still evolved to the terrifying extent of the heaven-crushing 5th transformation. Slash! Zhuowen pointed the sword finger on his right hand at his glabella. Instantly, a terrifying sword intent burst out from his glabella. The sword intent that was filled with unparalleled power manifested into a sword-shaped force that was dozens of feet long. Moreover, this sword-shaped force was constantly expanding and strengthening from several tens of feet to several tens of feet to several hundreds of feet and finally to several tens of thousands of feet. At the same time, in the depths of the black hole, countless bolts of black lightning intertwined like black snakes, constantly condensing, forming a black snake-shaped thunderbolt that was thousands of feet long. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The ear-piercing hiss of the snake's forked tongue filled heaven and earth. Then, the huge black snake that had been accumulating power swooped down, opened its bloody mouth, and released endless black lightning toward Zhuowen. Zhuan's eyes were calm as he silently looked down at the huge snake that was swooping down toward him. He waved his right hand, and the sword that had swelled to several tens of thousands of feet long soared into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. The sword collided with the huge snake, and a terrifying explosion that shook heaven and earth erupted. Then, the entire sky lit up with a blinding light. Zhuan spat out a mouthful of blood, and the energy in his body surged as he crashed to the ground. He had sustained heavy injuries. Then he saw the black hole in the sky gradually shrink, and the lightning snake also gradually dissipated. He knew that he had successfully transcended the void god transformation stage tribulation this time. At the same time, Zhuan felt a powerful surge of energy enter his body, and his injuries gradually healed. His aura also rapidly rose. He knew that he had transcended the tribulation and had reached the void god transformation stage. This surge of energy was the feedback from heaven and earth. Zhuan hurriedly sat down cross-legged on the ground and absorbed this mysterious energy. His aura also continued to grow. After about half a day, Zhuan slowly opened his eyes. His aura had completely stabilized, and he had successfully broken through to the void god transformation stage. Moreover, Huang Xiaolong's faux god transformation was different from ordinary faux god transformation experts. Not only did the Grand Mist God Force flow through his body surpass the Grand Mist God Force, but the number of faux gods he could condense wasn't 1, but 9. Zhuan slowly stood up. With a thought, numerous powerful phantoms appeared around him. There were a total of 9 phantoms clad in armor. 9 pairs of eerie eyes silently looked at Zhuan. Then, they knelt on one knee and faced Zhuan. Zhuan silently looked at the 9 void gods in front of him, and his heart also jolted with shock. The most obvious characteristic of the void god transformation stage was that a mysterious energy would emerge from heaven and earth and condense into a void god that would attach itself to the cultivator's body. The cultivator only needed a thought to summon this void god to fight for them. Ordinary cultivators could only condense a single void god. This was the law. However, after Zhuan broke through to the void god transformation stage, he was able to condense 9 void gods. This was simply too unbelievable. A serious expression appeared on Zhuan's face. It wasn't that he hadn't battled with void god transformation stage cultivators before. He had even defeated peak void god transformation stage cultivators before. However, there had never been a void god transformation stage cultivator like him. Moreover, the energy flowing through his body was far more powerful than void god transformation stage cultivators. If Zhuan were to face a peak void god transformation stage cultivator now, he would be able to crush them with a single finger. Moreover, these 9 void gods were far more powerful than ordinary void gods. Zhuan didn't need to rely on the power of the astral weapon to fight a peak 5 elements transformation stage cultivator, and he could even suppress them. After breaking through, Zhuan didn't rush back to the Hong sect. Instead, he took out the purple key he found in the secret chamber. With a thought, the supreme word stone flew out and merged with the purple key. Then, the map fragment in Zhuan's divine soul was instantly replenished. Originally, it was only 1/3 of the map, but now it was 2/3 complete. Zhuan finally understood the specific outline and location of this map fragment. From this map fragment, Zhuan could tell that the second primordial stone should be located in a huge mountain range. What exactly was this mountain range? Zhuan wasn't too sure. He knew nothing about the geography of the 100 domains. At least, from what he knew, this mountain range shouldn't be in the middle state. Zhuan knew that he needed to find a detailed geographical map of the 100 domains before he could know the exact location of this mountain range. Perhaps he should go to the middle state to try his luck and see if he could find a geographical map of the 100 domains. Chapter 38-34. Brother Daowin, you are finally back. Did you successfully break through to the empty god transformation stage? At the entrance of the main hall, Dao Jing saw Zhuo descend and hurriedly went up to greet him, asking excitedly. Yes, I did. Zhuo smiled and continued to ask, is the sect leader inside? Yes, after you left, Master suddenly had a headache. He is resting inside now, Dokio said. Zhuo nodded and stepped into the main palace. In the broken main palace, the shabby Taoist priest was lying on the bed with his head in his hands. Dao Kong was taking care of him. Brother. Dao Kong bowed to Zhuo and retreated to the side at Zhuo's signal. Zhuo walked to the bedside and looked at the shabby Taoist priest who was still groaning with his head in his hands. He could not help but think of the voice in the stone room who called himself Hong Shenwu. Daowen, you are finally back. I suddenly had a headache. I don't know why. You don't have to worry. I will recover soon, the shabby Taoist priest said softly. Zhuo thought for a moment and asked, Sect leader, you said that the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra was brought back by the Ancestral Master. I would like to ask, what is the name of the Ancestral Master? The shabby Taoist priest was stunned. He shook his head and said, the memorial tablets of the Hong sect were all smashed many years ago. I don't even remember the names of many of the sect leaders, let alone the Ancestral Master. Daowen, why are you suddenly asking about this? Zhuo smiled and shook his head. I am just asking. Sect leader, you should rest first. After you rest, I will bring you to Zhong Province first, then to Evil King Island. Brother Daowen, why are we going to Zhong Province? Dokio and Dao Kong asked curiously. I need to buy the geographical map of the 100 Outer Territories. It is useful to me, Zhuo said ambiguously. Dokio and Dao Kong did not ask any more questions. When the first ray of warm sunlight shone on the eastern horizon, Zhuo slowly opened his eyes. His eyes suddenly became serious. He slowly raised his head and looked to the east of the ruins of the Hong sect. His divine telekinesis had detected two powerful auras that were rapidly approaching him. Zhuo thought that the auras were just cultivators passing by, so he did not think much of it. However, as the auras got closer, Zhuo realized that something was wrong. The two auras were heading straight for the Hong sect. Clearly, they were coming for the Hong sect. Swoosh! Two whistling sounds could be heard as two men appeared on top of the ruins of the Hong sect. The middle-aged man's a young man, the early stage of the 5-element transformation stage. As for the other young man, his cultivation was slightly weaker. He was probably at the heaven-trampling transformation stage. However, Zhuo could not help but frown when he saw the attire of these two people. Zhuo was familiar with their attire. It was the attire of the Hong Wu Divine Sect. When he and Zhu Xiang visited the Hong Wu Divine Sect, the disciples of the Hong Wu Divine Sect were wearing the same attire. The middle-aged man's attire was exactly the same as the elder of the Hong Wu Divine Sect who had chased after Zhuo. He should be an elder of the Hong Wu Divine Sect as well. When the two of them landed on the ruins of the Hong sect, they looked around with obvious disgust in their eyes. They had seen Zhuo long ago, but they completely treated Zhuo as air and ignored him. Hong Shenwu, get out here, the younger Daowen shouted. His voice was loud and clear, echoing throughout the entire Hong sect. Soon, the slovenly Taoist walked out of the main hall with Dao Kong and Dokio. Wang Yuanzheng, why are you here? The slovenly Taoist's face changed when he saw the middle-aged man. His voice was filled with wariness and fear. The middle-aged man looked at the slovenly Taoist and grinned. Brother Hong, what's wrong? We're old friends. Why are you calling me by my name? As he spoke, the middle-aged man winked at the young man beside him. The younger Taoist laughed and walked up to the slovenly Taoist. He gave him 2 tight slaps. What are you doing? Why are you hitting my master? Dao Kong shouted. He immediately pounced on a younger Taoist and started punching and kicking him. Damn brat, how dare you bite me? The young man was in pain. With a shout of anger, he kicked Dao Kong. Dao Kong screamed and rolled on the ground. Dokio quickly ran over and helped Dao Kong up. His eyes were filled with fear. The younger Taoist wanted to continue kicking Dao Kong, but the slovenly Taoist blocked him. Old geezer, why are you blocking me? Get lost. the younger Taoist said coldly. The slovenly Taoist's face darkened. He looked at Wang Yuanzheng and said, Wang Yuanzheng, you don't come here for no reason. Why are you here? You've already destroyed the last hall of the Hong sect and taken away the last divine ability. There's nothing else here that you want. Wang Yuanjing smiled. Brother Hong, you're still so naive. Who says there's nothing left here? You still have your lives. The slovenly Taoist's pupils constricted. He said angrily, Sure, Shen Hong promised that he wouldn't cause trouble here after he dug out the chaos divine vein. Don't you know? You want to go against Shen Hong's promise? Wang Yuanzheng shrugged. Sect Master did make that promise, but you didn't see it clearly. He only said that he wouldn't cause trouble here. He didn't say that the rest of the Hong martial divine sect wouldn't cause trouble here. The slovenly Taoist's face paled. He knew that he had been tricked by Shen Hong. Shen Hong had taken all the resources of the Hong sect, but he still wanted to take their lives. Brother Hong, rest in peace. You won't be lonely with your disciple by your side. Wang Yuanjing chuckled. The younger Taoist's right hand formed a claw and grabbed at the slovenly Taoist. However, when the young Taoist's right hand was about to touch the slovenly Taoist's neck, a hand suddenly appeared and grabbed his right hand. The young Taoist's pupils constricted. He looked at the young man who had suddenly appeared and whispered, Who the hell are you? Let go of me. The person who had suddenly attacked was Zhuowen. Who the hell are you? You want me to let go of you? Zhuowen said calmly. He twisted his right hand, and the young Taoist's right hand was bent strangely. The bones in the young Taoist's right hand cracked. Zhuowen ignored the young Taoist's scream. He looked at Wang Yuanzheng and said coldly, Is what you said true? Are you here to kill the Hong sect? Is this your own idea, or Shen Hong's? Wang Yuanzheng was stunned. He then reacted and looked at Zhuowen with an ugly expression. Who are you? Let go of him. We are from the Hong martial divine sect. Wang Yuanzheng could sense that Zhuowen was at the early stage of the empty god transformation realm. Therefore, he didn't panic. The young Taoist was no match for him. I'm asking you a question. Zhuowen's voice turned cold. Then a powerful force poured out of his palm and entered the young Taoist's body. Chapter 38-35. How dare you? Wang Yuanjing's pupils constricted and his eyes turned crimson red. He flew out and unleashed the power of a mid-stage 5 elements transformation stage. The surrounding space exploded and energy overflowed. Zhuowen sneered. With a single thought, a void spirit appeared behind him. Then, he threw out a punch with an even more terrifying might. When the two fists collided, the shockwaves of energy exploded and spread in all directions. Then, Wang Yuanjing screamed in horror. His right hand directly collapsed, and a bloody mist spread out. He flew backwards in a sorry state and smashed heavily onto the ground. Zhuowen's body trembled, and he could not help but take a few steps back. He squinted his eyes. It seemed that he had only used the power of an empty god to suppress a mid-stage, 5 elements transformation stage expert. This showed how powerful he was. Wang Yuanjing got up from the ground and looked at Zhuowen in horror. Although he was sent flying in a sorry state just now, he didn't suffer too much damage. Therefore, he was still full of energy. Answer my question. Zhuowen walked slowly toward Wang Yuanzheng. A second empty god appeared behind him. Zhuowen's aura suddenly skyrocketed, becoming extremely terrifying and powerful. 2 empty gods. Wang Yuanzheng was shocked. This was the first time he had heard of someone who had 2 empty gods at the empty god transformation stage. Moreover, his strength was as terrifying as Zhuowen's. Let's go. Wang Yuanzheng had the intention to retreat. When Zhuowen walked over, he immediately used his movement technique and fled to the back. Zhuowen sneered. Few people in the 5-element transformation stage could compare to his movement skill. Zhuowen stomped his right foot, and his entire body transformed into a purple ghost, disappearing from the spot. A purple figure flashed, and Zhuowen's figure appeared above Wang Yuanzheng. Following this, Zhuowen's purple fist aura smashed down, causing terrifying purple waves to surge out. Wang Yuanjing's face changed. He forced himself to turn around and threw out a punch. Crack! Unfortunately, Zhuowen, who had summoned 2 empty gods, was more powerful than Wang Yuanzhong. Wang Yuanjing's right fist was distorted and collapsed. Clouds of blood mist exploded. It looked very strange and terrifying. Then, Zhuowen's fist landed on Wang Yuanjing's chest like a rainbow, piercing the sun. The powerful fist went through Wang Yuanjing's chest, and blood splattered in the air. However, Zhuowen did not give up. His right foot suddenly stepped out and fiercely stomped on Wang Yuanjing's body. Wang Yuanzhong screamed and fell to the ground. Zhuowen's right foot stepped on Wang Yuanzhong. He asked, "Zhuowen, you haven't answered my question." I'll talk. Wang Yuanzhong shouted in fear. He had long been scared out of his wits by Zhuowen's powerful strength. Was sect leader, "This has nothing to do with me." The slovenly Taoist was furious. He said, "Sure, Shan Hong is a bastard. The Hong sect is in such a state. Why won't he let it go?" Sect leader told me that the Hong sect is an eyesore. He can't tolerate sand in his eyes. Even if the Hong sect is no longer a threat, he still thinks that it's best to destroy it. Wang Yuanzhong said in a trembling voice. The slovenly Taoist was furious. He gritted his teeth as if he wanted to tear Shi Shenhong apart. Zhuowen was expressionless. He waved his sleeve, and a powerful divine power poured out. Wang Yuanzhong screamed as his divine soul was destroyed, and he fell to the ground. It seems that Hongwu divine sect is not going to let the Hong sect go. After so many years, Hongwu divine sect has declined to such an extent. Shi Shan Hong still. The slovenly Taoist clenched his fists tightly and looked very serious. Hongwu Shengzhen is not targeting the Hong sect anymore. Only Hongwu divine sect? Zhuowen asked. The slovenly Taoist said self-deprecatingly. Hongwu Shengzhen only wants the Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra. He doesn't care about the Hong sect at all. The Heaven and Earth Howren Sutra has been destroyed. Hongwu Shengzhen couldn't care less about the Hong sect. After all, Hongwu Shengzhen is much more powerful than the Hong sect. Maybe Hongwu Shengzhen has forgotten that he once destroyed the Hong sect, but Hongwu divine sect is different. When the Hong sect was at its peak, Hongwu divine sect was only a subsidiary of the Hong sect. They had a very low status. When Hongwu Shengzhen attacked the Hong sect, Hongwu divine sect was able to turn the tables. Hongwu divine sect is afraid that the Hong sect will be able to turn the tables one day. That's why they have been targeting the Hong sect. To this day, they even want to wipe the Hong sect clean. The slovenly Taoist looked tired as he spoke. Dao Kong and Dokyo quickly comforted the slovenly Taoist. Faction leader, don't worry. From now on, the Hong sect will move to Evil King Island. That place is currently a forbidden area for cultivators. But to us, it's heaven. Even the Hongwu divine sect wouldn't dare to enter Evil King Island. Zhuowen said calmly. The slovenly Taoist nodded. The Hong sect's old site was no longer safe. Evil King Island was their best choice. Go and pack up. We will depart now, Zhuowen said. The slovenly Taoist and the others did not hesitate. They went into the main hall and started to pack up their things. Soon, the 4 of them got on the divine boat and headed to Zhong State. Not long after Zhuowen and the others left, a few figures landed on the Hong sect's old site. The auras of these figures were extremely powerful. Most of them were at least 5 elements transformation stage. Moreover, from the way they were dressed, they should be from the Hong martial divine sect. Wang Yuanzhong and Lu Luan are both dead. A tall, skinny man walked to Wang Yuanjing's body and said with an unfriendly expression, Wang Yuanzhong is an elite at the middle stage of 5 elements transformation stage. How could there be an elite who could kill Wang Yuanzhong when the Hong sect is already in such dire straits? Someone asked in confusion. I'm not sure either. Just keep Wang Yuanjing's body and go back to report to the faction leader. If it's really as we thought, the Hong sect has such an elite, We can't let him go, the skinny man said coldly. After about half a day, Zhuowen and the others left the remote area and arrived at the center of Zhong State. Faction leader, Junior Brother Daokong, Junior Brother Dokio, please stay in my realm for a while. I still have some things to settle in Zhong State. Once I'm done, I'll go to Evil King Island. Zhuowen landed in a remote alley and said to the slovenly Taoist and the other two. Chapter 38-36. Zhuowen asked around on the street and found out that the most famous auction house in the Central State was the World Auction House. He knew very well that the auction house had the most complete set of items. If he wanted to find a complete geographical map of the 100 domains, the best way was to buy it from the auction house. The World Auction House was very large, and there was an endless stream of people coming and going inside. Inside the auction house, there were many counters. Behind the counters sat appraisers and salespeople. Zhuowen came to a counter with few people. At this counter sat a rather young woman. Excuse me, I need a complete geographical map of the 100 domains. Does the World Auction House sell it? Zhuowen asked. The young woman glanced at Zhuowen strangely and said, The 100 domains are so big. How long would it take to draw a geographical map of the entire 100 domains? And even if there's a complete geographical map, it is still a priceless treasure. At least our auction house doesn't have a complete geographical map of the 100 domains. Zhuowen was startled. He didn't expect the geographical map of the 100 domains to be so precious. However, after thinking about it, he suddenly understood. The 100 domains were so big, and there were many secret realms and treasure troves in it. If there really was such a complete map, then he only needed to look at the geographical map to find the treasure troves. It would be very convenient. Then what kind of geographical map does your auction house have the most complete? Zhuowen continued to ask. The most complete one should only be the one in the Central State. But in 10 days, the auction house will hold a grand auction. I heard that among the items in this auction, there is a complete geographical map of the Hushu domain. If you're interested, you can participate in the auction in 10 days, the young woman said. Hearing this, Zhuowen was a little disappointed. He didn't expect that the largest auction house in the Central State didn't have a complete geographical map of the 100 domains. They didn't even have a geographical map of the Hushu domain. If he only had the map of the Central Plains, it would be useless to him. Although he hadn't visited all the places in the Central Plains, he knew that the map fragment in his soul didn't show the Central Plains. After all, the geography of the map fragment was very strange. When Zhuowen went to the Evil King Island, he had almost crossed the central region, but he did not have any impression of this geography. That was why he came to such a conclusion. However, after thinking about it for a while, Zhuowen felt relieved. The 100 regions outside the realm were vast, almost boundless. It was just too large. Drawing a geographical map of the entire 100 outer realms would definitely consume a great deal of energy. He knew that this kind of geographical map definitely existed, but it was definitely very rare and exceptionally precious. Only a truly powerful force would have a small number of treasure copies, and they might not even be complete. Zhuowen decided to participate in the auction that would be held in 10 days. The geographical map of the 100 domains would determine whether or not he could find the second primordial grand stone. This was his foundation, so he had to be careful. Time passed quickly. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Today was the grand auction held by the World Auction House. In the huge World Auction House, there was an endless stream of people. Zhuowen spent quite a lot of chaos crystals before he could buy an ordinary ticket in the auction. The place where the auction was located was a building with a domed roof. The space inside was very large, surrounded by ring-shaped seats. In the centermost position, there was a circular open space. In the open space, there was a rather large high platform. Zhuowen knew that this high platform should be where the auctioneer stood. Zhuowen chose a more remote corner seat and sat down, waiting silently. There were many seats around. Moreover, these seats were very close to each other, practically sitting next to the people next to them. Apart from these ordinary seats, Zhuowen also discovered that on the top 5 floors, each floor had dozens of exquisitely decorated private rooms. From the surrounding people's discussion, Zhuowen also knew that these private rooms could not be bought by ordinary people using chaos crystals. These private rooms were specially reserved by the World Auction House for the upper echelons of the famous forces in Middle State. These private rooms were located at the top and took up a large area. Not only did they have a wide view, but there were also several beautiful women serving them. The service could be said to be top-notch. Zhuowen scanned with his spiritual will and found that most of the private rooms were occupied. Of course, Zhuowen did not know most of the cultivators in these private rooms. However, he could feel that these cultivators' auras were extremely powerful. They were at least at the yin-yang change realm. Although Zhuowen's spiritual will seemed unrestrained, the cultivators in the private rooms basically did not notice Zhuowen's spiritual will. This was because Zhuowen's soul had fused with the Tai Word Stone. The aura of his spiritual will was extremely weak, almost non-existent. Even cultivators with a much higher cultivation level than Zhuowen would not be able to detect it unless Zhuowen did not want to reveal his spiritual will. It's him. When Zhuowen's spiritual will scanned a private room on the top floor, he found a familiar face. There were not many people in this private room. There were only about 3 of them. The 3 of them were wearing the robes of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Obviously, they were from the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Moreover, the auras of the 3 of them were extremely powerful. Among the 3 of them, Zhuowen was very familiar with one of them. He was Sikong Chiyu, the great elder of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. He was also an expert second only to Shi Shenhong. As for the other 2, although their auras were not as strong as Shi Shenhong's, it could be seen that they were not weak. They should be the more powerful elders of the Hong Martial Divine Sect. Zhuowen's face turned serious. Even an expert like Sikong Chiyu of the Hong Martial Divine Sect was participating in this auction. Could it be that there would be something incredible appearing in this auction? He scanned the area with his divine telekinesis again and discovered several powerhouses at the level of God domain change. His expression became exceptionally solemn. It seemed like this auction was not simple. Have you heard? It's said that a rank 4 astral weapon fragment will appear in this auction. I wonder if it's true. It should be true. A few months before the auction started, the upper echelons of many forces had already gathered around the World Auction House. All of them are great experts. If this news is not reliable, there wouldn't be so many terrifying experts gathered here. I feel that this news should be more reliable. Zhuowen heard a few cultivators whispering to each other not far away. Although their voices were not loud, Zhuowen could still hear them clearly. So that's the case. No wonder even an expert like Sikong Chiyu is participating in this auction. So it's because a rank 4 astral weapon fragment has appeared. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. To him, the astral weapon fragment could be fused with to become stronger. Zhuowen also wanted to obtain this rank 4 astral weapon fragment. However, he knew that there were many experts gathered in this auction. With his strength and wealth, he might not be able to compete with these experts. Chapter 38-37. About an hour later, almost all the cultivators in the auction hall had arrived. The surroundings were filled with a hubbub of voices and clamor. Right at this moment, the surrounding noise instantly stopped. Then, everyone's eyes involuntarily fell on the central platform. They saw a sexy female cultivator walk out of the central platform. She was wearing very revealing clothes, and as she walked, she stroked her hair coquettishly, making many male cultivators' hearts burn with passion. Zhuowen noticed the auction hammer in the charming female cultivator's hand. He knew that this woman should be the auctioneer of this auction. When the female cultivator walked to the center of the platform, she bowed deeply to the surroundings, revealing a sweet smile, and said, "Fellow Taoists, my daughter, Yu Sha, is the auctioneer of this auction. Fellow Taoists, please support Yusha in this auction." The surrounding male cultivators were in a clamor, and many male cultivators whistled frivolously. Zhuowen looked at Yusha silently. The moment this woman came out, a fire rose in his heart, but he forcefully suppressed it. He knew that this woman should have cultivated a seduction technique. Every frown and smile had a soul-stirring feeling. "Little girl, don't show off your vulgar seduction technique anymore. Hurry up and start the auction. This old man's patience is limited." An old voice came from a box on the left, and the entire venue exploded like thunder. Many cultivators who were immersed in Yusha's seduction technique woke up one after another. When they came back to their senses, they all revealed looks of astonishment. Yusha's face became somewhat pale. This voice was somewhat targeted at her, so her mind was also affected to a certain extent. After Yusha adjusted her state, she bowed to the box where the owner of the voice was, then knocked the hammer in her hand and said, "Now, the auction begins." Zhuan's divine sense fell on the box on the left, and his gaze immediately became strange. The reason for that was because the person he saw in the private room was not an old man in his twilight years. Instead, it was a very young woman. This woman looked very ordinary, but the aura on her body was extremely powerful. Although it was not as strong as Sikong Chiyu, it was actually not too far off. It seemed that this woman deliberately disguised her voice as the voice of a dying old man in order to conceal her identity. Zhuowen retracted his telepathic thoughts and discovered that a crystal table was slowly rising from the bottom of the central platform. In the middle of the crystal table, there was a tray. On the tray, there was a thumb-sized green divine pill. This is the heaven-breaking fourth-order divine pill, 10,000 Dragons explosive pill. It can increase one's potential for a short period of time, allowing one to erupt with the power of 10,000 dragons. If a void god transformation stage cultivator were to consume this divine pill, their strength would explode to the early 5 elements transformation stage. This is a divine pill that can allow a void god transformation stage cultivator to fight above their level. The starting price is 100,000 chaos crystals, and each increment must be no less than 10,000 chaos crystals. Yusha's crisp voice rang out. Instantly, the surrounding cultivators began to shout out bids in a frenzy. Zhuowen observed silently and did not participate in the bidding. This 10,000 dragons violent pill was of no use to him. He would just be wasting his primal chaos crystals if he bid for it. He also noticed that apart from the cultivators in the seats outside, none of the mighty figures in the private rooms said anything. They were all powerful existences with high statuses. They naturally looked down on this 10,000 dragons violent pill. Zhuowen suspected that these people were here for the rumored stage for Astral Weapon Fragment. In the end, the 10,000 dragons violent pill was won by a middle-aged male cultivator for 320,000 chaos crystals. After this middle-aged male cultivator received the 10,000 dragons violent pill, he immediately left the auction house quietly. Zhuowen Spiritual will discover that at the same time that the middle-aged male cultivator left, some other cultivators also silently left their seats and followed closely behind the middle-aged male cultivator. Zhuowen shook his head. His spiritual will detected that the cultivators who followed him out were not any weaker than the middle-aged male cultivator. In fact, some of them were even slightly stronger. This time, the middle-aged male cultivator was most likely doomed. After that, the auction proceeded in an orderly manner. There were divine pills, divine weapons, and divine abilities. The next item for sale is a little special. It is not a divine pill, divine weapon, or divine ability. Instead, it is a complete geographical map of the Hushi realm. The starting price is 300,000 chaos crystals. Fellow Taoists who are interested can bid for it. It is definitely worth it. On the crystal table, a scroll made of jade appeared. Yusha opened a portion of the scroll. Indeed, there were various patterns of different terrains on it. Zhuowen's eyes were sharp. When he opened a portion of the scroll, he actually caught a glimpse of the terrains that were similar to the remnant map in his mind. Is indeed in the Hushi realm? Zhuowen clenched his fists in excitement. His face was flushed with excitement. He definitely had a bid for this geographical map. Moreover, he had a bid for it at all costs. This was the key to whether or not he could find the second primordial stone. Although geographical maps were precious, most itinerant cultivators did not have much interest in them. They did not have many chaos crystals on them to begin with. Most of them only planned to spend them on things that could increase their own strength. How could they possibly waste their extra chaos crystals on a geographical map? Geographical maps were not very attractive to itinerant cultivators. However, they were extremely attractive and useful to large forces with deep foundations. Their respective forces also had some geographical maps, but they were not particularly complete. In fact, they did not know much about some of the regions in the Hushi realm. If they could bid for the complete geographical map of the Hushi realm, they would not have to waste their energy to personally explore and draw a map. Therefore, an interesting phenomenon occurred. The ordinary seats, which had been the most fiercely bidding, were now completely silent. It was so quiet that it was frightening. The upper seats, which had been silent, began to bid, raising the price step by step. 1,000,000 chaos crystals. One of the private rooms immediately doubled the price. 1,500,000. 1,800,000. 3,000,000. I'm the flaming sage of the True Fire Tower. This geographical map is of great use to me. Everyone, please give me some face. Flaming Sage thanks you once again. Suddenly, a rough voice rang out from the front 3 seats. He immediately raised the price by 1,000,000 and announced his name. The voices that had been bidding immediately died down. The True Fire Tower's influence in the central continent was not small. It was one of the top 10 forces. The Flaming Sage was a great expert of the True Fire Tower, second only to his sect. He was very famous in the central continent. Since he had announced his name, many cultivators who had heard of the Flaming Sage's name stopped bidding. It could be said that they were giving the Flaming Sage some face. Moreover, the geographical map of the Hushu realm had become somewhat expensive after the price had reached 3,000,000 chaos crystals. Therefore, the voices that had been bidding earlier had all stopped. 3,010,000. Just when the Flaming Sage thought that no one would bid against him and that the geographical map would belong to no one but him, an unhurried voice rang out from below. Everyone followed the voice and found that the bidder was a young man sitting in an ordinary seat. Chapter 38:38. Daoist Flamewing's eyes slowly narrowed, and he gazed coldly at Zhuowen. Junior, I'll give you a chance. Withdraw your bid right now, and perhaps you'll still have a chance to live. Zhuowen didn't even look at the Flaming Sage. Instead, he looked at Yusha on the central platform and said indifferently, Miss Yusha, this old man is openly threatening me. Is your auction house not going to do anything about it? As soon as he said this, many of the surrounding cultivators looked at Zhuowen with pity. Even Yusha's gaze towards Zhua had become somewhat strange. However, Yusha, who was a professional, still gave her answer. Esteemed guest, you are free to bid in our heavenly auction house. As long as you are determined to obtain this item, we will not restrict you from bidding. And you can rest assured that fighting is not allowed in the heavenly auction house. Esteemed guest, you can rest assured, Yusha said with a professional smile. Zhuowen sneered inwardly. He could tell what Yusha was planning with a single glance. She was clearly trying to provoke him to continue bidding. As long as the price was raised, the heavenly auction house would profit. As for Yusha's words about not fighting in the heavenly auction house, would he stay in the heavenly auction house forever? He had offended the Flaming Sage. As soon as he left the heavenly auction house, the latter probably wouldn't care about his life or death and would let the Flaming Sage do whatever he wanted to him. I believe in your heavenly auction house. Zhuo nodded seriously. Then he pointed at the Flaming Sage's box and said arrogantly, Dog Taoist, are you threatening me? You're still too inexperienced. If you have the ability, come and bid with me. Don't be a stupid pig and try to threaten me with force." As soon as he said this, the surrounding cultivators were stunned. F***CK, this rogue cultivator was pushing his luck. Did he really think that the heavenly auction house would protect him just because of a few words from Yusha? Many of the powerhouses in the box shook their heads with cold smiles. They could easily guess that this unbridled rogue cultivator would have a very miserable ending. Adept Flamewing almost flew into a rage, but he didn't immediately act out. He wasn't a newborn calf and was very clear about the rules of the World Auction House. In addition to the background of the World Auction House, he didn't dare to cause a ruckus during the auction. However, after the auction was over, the Flaming Taoist had made up his mind to make that arrogant ant die a horrible death. For a million, Taoist Flamewing coldly quoted a new price. He was still unwilling to give up on the map just like that, so he immediately raised the price by another million. In his opinion, a mere itinerant cultivator would definitely not be able to take out so many chaos gems in such a short time. Unfortunately, as soon as Venerable Flamewing announced his bid, Zhuan, who was sitting in the ordinary seats, slowly said, 4.01 million. Bang! The Flamewing Taoist clenched his right hand and slammed it on the table in front of him. He stared at Zhuan as if he wanted to eat Zhuan whole. The powerhouses in the other boxes also took a second look at Zhuan. For a mere rogue cultivator to be able to quote a price of 4.01 million, he must be really rich. This was very rare among rogue cultivators. Sikong Chiyu stood in the box with his hands behind his back. His gaze also fell on Zhuan, and his brows slowly furrowed. He had never seen this rogue cultivator who had challenged the Flaming Taoist before, but he felt a sense of familiarity. "Ant, I'll let you have the map. I'd like to see how long you can keep it." The Flaming Taoist's suppressed anger filled the auction house. After he finished speaking, he didn't say anything else. Everyone was discussing spiritedly. They all knew that the Flaming Taoist had given up on bidding. At the same time, they all cast looks of pity and sympathy at Zhuan. In their eyes, the Flaming Taoist's words were a death sentence for this person. Yusha revealed a brilliant and charming smile. She took a second look at Zhuan and continued, "Is there anyone else who wants to bid a higher price? This map is very useful. It's a complete map of the Hex Realm. If you're passing by, don't miss it." Zhuan's expression was a bit ugly. Yusha still wasn't satisfied at this time. The price of 4.01 million had far exceeded the value of the map. If he hadn't emptied the Nangong family's treasury, as well as the spirit rings of the cultivators he had killed over the years, he really wouldn't have been able to take out so many chaos crystals at once. After waiting for a long time and confirming that no one else was bidding, Yusha slammed the hammer in disappointment. "Congratulations, fellow Taoist, for obtaining the map of the Hex Realm." The moment the hammer fell, Zhuan let out a sigh of relief. He knew that the map was now his. Yusha continued to auction off the next item, while the geographical map was placed on a tray by a tall and burly man, who walked towards Zhuan's seat. "Fellow Taoist, the total is 4.01 million chaos crystals." The burly man arrived in front of Zhuan and held the tray with an expressionless face. 4.01 million? Isn't it 4.01 million? Zhuan asked strangely. "The rules of the Heavenly Auction House are that we charge a service fee of 10%. Your auction item is 4.01 million, so the service fee is 400,000. Fellow Taoist, don't worry. After receiving the service fee, the Heavenly Auction House will do our best to ensure your safety in the auction house," the burly man said calmly. Zhuan pondered for a moment before handing over 4.01 million chaos crystals to the burly man. Since this was the rule of the Heavenly Auction House, he couldn't violate it. The burly man counted the chaos crystals in the spirit ring. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he handed the map to Zhuan and left his seat. Zhuan silently stored the map in his great world. There were too many people here, so it wasn't appropriate to check the map here. Zhuan's original plan was to leave immediately after obtaining the map. However, after knowing that a Stage 4 astral weapon fragment would appear in this auction, Zhuowen decided to stay. He wanted to see what a Stage 4 astral weapon fragment looked like. The auction proceeded in an orderly manner. Precious auction items were displayed one after another, and they all attracted the bidding of the cultivators. Moreover, the auction items displayed later became more and more precious. Even Zhuowen couldn't help but be tempted. However, as the bidding continued, the prices of these auction items were raised to an extremely high level. In the end, Zhuowen still didn't compete with the others. Meanwhile, the powerhouses in the private rooms also started to join in the bidding as the auction items became more and more precious. The people in these private rooms were basically the upper echelons of the major forces in the central state. Needless to say, their wealth naturally went without saying. When the bidding started, it was extremely crazy. Even Zhuowen was dumbfounded when he saw their bidding. Next, the auction item is the finale item of this auction. I think everyone has already guessed. Yes, it's a Stage 4 astral weapon. Chapter 38-39. Amidst the endless clamor, another crystal table rose from the center of the auction hall. On the table, there was a transparent, airtight cover. The cover glowed brightly and radiated with extremely powerful restriction waves. Inside the cover lay a palm-sized bronze mirror. This bronze mirror was not complete. From its outline, it could be seen that this bronze mirror was damaged. Moreover, the damage was very severe. However, Zhuowen's gaze turned serious the moment he saw this bronze mirror fragment. He could sense that the aura emitted by this bronze mirror was extremely unusual. It could even be said that it was extremely powerful. It was far more terrifying than the rank 3 astral weapon fragment, the purple gold toad that he had. Is this a rank 4 astral weapon? Zhuowen's eyes shone brightly as his heart burned with passion. Previously, when he used the purple gold toad, he was able to kill a 5 elements transformation powerhouse at the peak of the Heaven Ascension transformation stage. If he could obtain this rank 4 astral weapon and merge it with the purple gold toad, wouldn't he have the ability to kill a yin-yang transformation powerhouse? At this moment, Zhuowen was thinking about how to obtain this bronze mirror fragment. However, the moment Yusha announced the starting price, Zhuowen immediately revealed a bitter smile. This is the highlight of this auction. The 3 Fire True Mirror is a genuine rank 4 astral weapon. It is said that the 3 Fire True Mirror can release 3 types of powerful flames, each more powerful than the last. Although the 3 Fire True Mirror is badly damaged, it can still release a type of flame that is extremely powerful. It is said that it can instantly burn a yin-yang transformation powerhouse to death. Yusha smiled sweetly as she listened to the heavy breathing below the stage. She continued, "The starting price of the 3 Fire True Mirror is 10 million chaos crystals. Each increment must be no less than 100,000. Starting now." Just as Yusha announced the starting price, the cultivators in the ordinary seats below the stage all sucked in a breath of cold air. 10 million chaos crystals? What kind of joke was this? Even if they sold themselves, they wouldn't be able to take out that many chaos crystals. Zhuowen was also shocked. He didn't expect the starting price of the 3 Fire True Mirror to be 10 million chaos crystals. Although he could take out that many chaos gems, that was only the starting price. Many of the people participating in this auction were the upper echelons of the major forces in the central state. Their wealth was so great that Zhuowen couldn't compare to them. He knew very well that there would be a fierce bidding war. The silence in the hall didn't last long. Finally, someone from the box high above made a bid. 11 million. 13 million. 15 million. The price of the 3 Fire True Mirror continued to rise, and the rogue cultivators in the ordinary seats could only watch helplessly, unable to get a word in edgewise. I'm afraid that this rank 4-star weapon won't be that easy to obtain. Beside Gonya Bolong, one of his subordinates spoke in a low voice with an ugly expression. Gonya Bolong sneered and said, I've already thought of this point. That's why I applied for the right to use so many chaos crystals before we set off. I don't know how long it has been since a rank 4-star weapon appeared in the Central State. Even our Crimson Summit Holy Hall only has one rank 4-star weapon. This kind of thing is too powerful. It's enough to allow a sect to gain a foothold in the Central State and strengthen the sect's foundation and power. If I'm not wrong, the 8-God John sect should be here too. Then, he handed the tray to Yun Kanglin. Esteemed guest, this 3-fire true mirror is of great importance. It's best if you don't leave through the front door. That would be too conspicuous. Our World Auction House has a secret passage that leads directly to a mountain range thousands of miles away. If esteemed guest is willing, we can arrange for you to enter that secret passage. After the man put away the spirit ring, he looked at Yun Kanglin and said. Yun Kanglin thought for a moment and nodded. Since your World Auction House has a secret passage, then I will follow you into the secret passage and leave this place first. Although Yun Kanglin knew that the sect master of the 8-God John sect would personally receive her, the location of the reception was not near the World Auction House. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.